Chapter 502. Zhao Qinyuan's thoughts stirred. He looked away. Brother Su, it's been a long time. He nodded to everyone else as a greeting. This behavior was a bit disrespectful, but it was natural for him. Even someone as cold and cruel as Dong Hanzhu didn't feel like he was being looked down upon. In the end, strength determined status. Su Guzi's smile was bright. He glanced at the stiff-faced Zhuolan Yue and said, "Your Highness and the other fellow Taoists have decided to join forces to cut down the ancient tree monster." Zhao Qinyuan nodded. "Good. Then let's go." He turned around and walked out of the mountain, not dragging his feet at all. Zhou Fengwang and Mu Qingwan's eyes lit up at the same time as they followed. Their figures moved. As they saw each other's movements, their gentle eyes instantly turned fierce and fierce. They ruthlessly glared at each other, and their steps quickened. Li Mingxian sucked in a deep breath, his complexion still pale. Sun Zifu sighed. He muttered, "If there is a day when I can have Scion Zhao's elegance, I can die without regrets." Qinyi nodded. He is indeed strong. Beneath the calamity immortal realm, besides the South Shine Nation's old ancestor, this Zhao Qinyuan was the strongest person he had ever seen. Sun Zifu bitterly smiled. He's more than strong. He's strong to the point of leaving one in despair. To live in the same era as such a person is a mistake. Beneath the bright moon, even if the stars are bright, they can only be reduced to a background, a foil. He glanced at Zhou Fengwang, who was chasing after him, and his eyes turned sour. Zhao Qinyuan is the bright moon, and you and I are the stars. It's just that you're a bit brighter, and he is a bit darker. Qinyu smiled, not saying anything else. Su Guzi put away the array formation disc, and everyone left the isolated peak area. Young Master Sun, who had been lamenting himself just a moment ago, soon became the focus of everyone's attention. Fellow Taoist Sun, the Sun family's supernatural bloodline, is famous far and wide. I ask that you help determine the location of the ancient tree monster. Sun Zifu nodded, trying his best not to show any fear in front of everyone. He sat down and lifted a hand to touch his forehead. His eyes immediately turned dark red, as if a sea of blood was surging within them. An eyeball appeared from the sea of blood. It wasn't clear and was blurry, but it gave off an extremely strange feeling. After several breaths of time, Sun Zifu stuffily coughed, and his face paled. The eyeball between his eyebrows collapsed, and the sea of blood faded with it. He opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Guzi's complexion changed. He pointed a finger and poured magic into him. Sun Zifu trembled for a moment before he barely managed to calm himself. "Many thanks, fellow Taoist Su." Sun Zifu's voice was deep and hoarse, like two gravel rubbing against each other in a dried-up river. Zhou Fengwang hesitated for a moment before squatting down. A delicate fragrance wafted into her nose. "Brother Sun, did you find it?" Sun Zifu weakly nodded. "I found it. Unfortunately, the ancient tree monster's aura is too terrifying, and it also has an extremely strong sensing ability. Just as I locked onto it, my divine sense was shaken away and my soul was heavily damaged. I. Shall I only I can. I. Zhou Fengwang said, "Since Brother Sun is injured, there's no need to rush this matter. You and I will first rush to the approximate location. Once Brother Sun recovers from his injuries, we could try again." Su Guzi solemnly said, "Fellow Taoist Sun was injured in order to determine the location of the ancient tree monster. We will do our best to look after you and not let anything happen to you." Sun Zifu nodded. He closed his eyes and meditated for a moment before standing up from the ground. It was just that his complexion was still pale. Mu Qingwan suddenly said, "Brother Sun's injuries aren't light. If we continue to hurry, it will affect your recovery. I know that Big Sister Zhou has a Phoenix lawn carriage that could be used as a means of transportation. Not only can Brother Sun rest, but Big Sister Zhou can also protect him from any accidents." Zhou Fenghuang's complexion stiffened. She sweetly smiled. Little Sister Blue Wan is right. Big Sister was just about to speak. "Brother Sun, please come with me and borrow the Phoenix lawn carriage. She paused for a moment and then continued to say, "This road is long. Everyone might as well use treasures to hurry along. Even if we encounter any sudden dangers, we can still calmly deal with them." Su Guzi hesitated for a moment. Miss Zhou's words are reasonable. There are dangers everywhere in this small world. It is necessary for us to maintain our peak condition at all times. He turned and smiled. "Scion Zhao, I have an ardent sun carriage that can be considered spacious. I wonder if Scion is willing to ride with me?" Zhao Qinyuan cupped his hands together. "Thank you for Brother Su's good intentions. I will hurry along on my own." Su Guzi smiled, not embarrassed at all. It was as if he had already expected this. "That's also good. With Scion's strength, there is no need to fear monster beast attacks. Brother Zhua, how about we ride together?" Zhuolanyu nodded. "All right." Mu Qingluan's eyes wished she could hang onto Zhao Qinyuan's body. Unfortunately, even Su Guzi had returned empty-handed, so she only dared to glance at him a few more times. Together with Li Mingxian, they boarded his 100-sword boat. Speaking of which, this boat was quite famous. It was pitch black all over and seemed like wood, but the truth was that it was forged from hundreds of broken divine swords. The Li family was a direct descendant of the demonic path's sword path. They had a long inheritance, and there were many sword path powerhouses under their tutelage. For these broken swords to enter their eyes and be chosen as materials for the boat, they were naturally extraordinary. In the rumors, one of these swords was called Killing Sunday. Countless souls had perished beneath this sword, and it was a demonic sword that had drunk the blood of countless lives. Afterwards, it rebelled against its master and was finally destroyed. Thus, this 100-sword boat could be said to be overflowing with sword intent and surging with slaughter energy. As soon as it appeared, it attracted everyone's attention, causing Li Mingxuan's complexion to brighten. In the end, he wasn't an idiot. Although he enjoyed the feeling of being in the limelight, he restrained the aura of the 100-sword boat and made it seem ordinary. However, everyone knew that once they encountered danger, this 100-sword boat could turn into a killing machine in the blink of an eye. Mu Qingluan's attention was pulled back a little. Dong Hanju hesitated for a moment. He walked over to Zhao Qinyuan's side. "I am not your match right now, but there will be a day when I defeat you." Zhao Qinyuan nodded. He didn't show any coldness or ridicule. These two people had clearly chosen to act alone. Qinyu smiled inwardly. Indeed, powerhouses didn't like to gather in groups. As for those that gathered in groups, they often harbored malicious intentions. His eyes swept over Su Guzi, Zhuolanyu, Zhou Fenghuang, and the others, a trace of ridicule in his eyes. He had seen these sorts of people who appeared warm on the surface but harbored evil intentions in their hearts. But now that he was here, he realized that these people's acting skills couldn't be underestimated. Thinking about it, the following journey would surely be lively and bustling. Perhaps in the eyes of these people, he was only a chess piece that was destined to be played. But what a pity this chess piece of his would likely leave them disappointed. Qinyu's eyes fell on Sun Zifu. His eyes flashed for a moment before returning to tranquility. There were some roads that could not be turned back once they were chosen. There were some things that could not be forgiven once they were done. Let's continue watching. Zhou Fenghuang's phoenix carriage was incomparably gorgeous. Black and gold wove together to form patterns. It was naturally noble and mysterious, causing one to instinctively feel awe in their hearts. The hanging curtains gently swayed in the wind. It seemed delicate and fragile, but the golden runes on its surface were like living creatures. Once they were attacked, they would erupt with black phoenix flames that could destroy all. Young Master Sun was comfortably lying down on a warm white blanket. As he smelled the faint fragrance, he felt so comfortable that he wanted to moan. Zhou Fenghuang faintly smiled. She seemed to be saying something to him. There was a bit of impatience in her eyes, but it was well hidden, making it hard for others to sense it. "Brother, I made you suffer today, but as long as we can find the ancient tree monster, no one will be able to ignore your merits. You will definitely obtain the harvest you deserve." Young Master Sun nodded again and again, a cunning light flashing in his eyes. The ancient tree monster was indeed strong, but he hadn't faced it head-on. He had only sensed its aura, and while his soul had been shaken, it hadn't been as serious as it seemed. But if he were to be locked onto, who would pay any more attention to him? Perhaps right now, he wouldn't even be able to enter this comfortable phoenix carriage. As long as he didn't lock onto the ancient tree monster for even a moment, he would be an indispensable member of the team. Of course, the distribution that Zhou Feng Huang had mentioned was also an important reason. Everyone had already signed a contract to not harm each other. He believed that no one would dare to violate it, so Sun Zifu wasn't too worried about his own safety. Moreover, although in terms of strength he was at the bottom of the group as a direct descendant disciple of the Sun family, it wasn't as if he didn't have methods to preserve his own life. With Scion Zhao joining them, their chances of hunting down the ancient tree monster would increase. No matter what, he had to take a share of the profits. A smug look flashed in his eyes. His eyes fell to the back of the group. At this time, he seemed to sense something and looked up. Their eyes met. Young Master Sun's heart trembled. He tried his best to maintain his calm, smiling and lowering his head. The smug feeling in his heart suddenly vanished, replaced by a great deal of restlessness. There wasn't a problem with Yao Bin's gaze just now, but for some unknown reason, he felt as if he had been seen through, as if there were no secrets left to hide. But that was impossible. Although the summit of this lonely mountain peak wasn't too large, Su Guzi had used a minor Sumeru treasure to isolate the outside from the outside. It was impossible for Yao Bin to discover their secret discussion. But why did he feel so uncomfortable? Could it be that he had a guilty conscience? Fellow Taoist Yao, I didn't want to do this, but the situation was beyond my control, so don't blame me. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the edges of the mottled furnace were covered with tree roots. The ends of the furnace cracked open, beads of blood falling down like rain. It was unknown how much blood had been poured into the furnace, but it wasn't even half full. It was clear that there was another world within. The sage's eyes were warm, and he smiled. What a bunch of clever little fellows. You were actually able to find the position of the ancient tree monster. Although my ultimate goal was to draw you all here, I still haven't finished my business, so I can't let you come here too early. Maybe I'll have to find something for you on the way. As his words fell, he reached out a hand and patted the incomparably thick trunk of the ancient tree monster several times. A pair of giant eyes slowly appeared, opening wide and revealing an icy chill. The sage bowed. Lord Monster Emperor, I need your help. This was a squad formed from the most elite juniors of the demonic path. Although there weren't many of them, their combat strength couldn't be underestimated. Although the small world had become dangerous, there was nothing that could stop them. Qin Yu was at the back of the squad. He discovered that he was particularly idle, not to mention a chance to attack, but before he could even react, the demon beast that appeared had already been cut down. The ones who attacked were mostly Scion Zhao and Dong Hanju. The former held a dragon spear in his hands. No matter how strong or weak a demon beast was, as long as it appeared in front of him, he would thrust his spear and kill it. There was no demon beast that could escape. The Dong family was a fiendish monster, his every movement overflowing with cruelty. The demon beasts that attacked him would often have their corpses broken, and the blood of their slaughter would overflow. On the surface, both sides seemed to be of similar levels. There wasn't a single demon beast that was a match for the two of them. But in terms of the details, compared to Scion Zhao's casual attacks, Dong Hanju's methods were far too crude. Qin Yu couldn't help but sigh once more. Zhao Qinyuan's strength was truly unfathomable. Up until now, he had only seen simple stabbing techniques with his spear. He hadn't used any of his true supernatural abilities. If he attacked with his full strength, he feared his strength would rise by several times over. Qin Yu asked himself, if the two of them were to fight in a life or death battle, he might not even have a 50% chance of victory. And this chance of victory was calculated after he considered all of his trump cards. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He really couldn't underestimate the heroes of the world. But he didn't know that if others in this group were to learn that Qin Yu dared to say that he had a 50% chance of victory in a life or death battle with Zhao Qinyuan, They would likely laugh their heads off. Little brother, where does your confidence come from? Zhao Qinyuan's name wasn't exaggerated at all. From his status as a Zhao family branch junior, he had walked step by step to where he was today. Although he hadn't spent too much time, the tempering he had experienced wasn't any less. One step at a time, everyone knew just how strong he was. In the entire land of divinity and demons, there weren't many people that dared to say that they would have a 50% chance of victory in a battle with Zhao Qinyuan. Suddenly, Qin Yu furrowed his eyebrows. His feet quietly separated, changing to the most suitable angle for exerting strength. Within his chest, his heart fiercely beat, pushing blood like waves through his blood vessels. Quietly, he had already prepared to attack. At this time, Zhao Qinyuan came to a sudden stop. Be careful, something is coming. Qin Yu's eyebrows shot up, surprise in his eyes. This scion Zhao had such keen senses. Indeed, compared to these true chosen prides of heaven, after he left his trump cards, the difference wasn't just a little bit. Rumble, 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 terrifying sounds spread out from the cliffs on both sides. Large boulders tumbled down, smashing into trees and filling the skies with broken branches and leaves. It was like a hurricane was roaring towards them. Zhou Fenghuang's eyes instantly turned dark. Countless shadows rose up from the ground, weaving together into layer upon layer of a net. The falling boulders smashed through layer after layer, their speed becoming increasingly slow until they finally stopped several hundred feet above everyone's heads. Roar! With an angry roar, a black ape appeared on top of a cliff. Its fangs were bared and its eyes shined with a golden light. It held a pitch-black staff in its hands and a cruel aura soared into the heavens. Commander-level demon beast. The black ape exerted strength in its feet. Its majestic body pressed down like a mountain. It raised the staff in its hands high and smashed it down, stirring up waves of wind. Before it fell, a terrifying aura had already arrived. With a loud cracking sound, the ground began to crack apart like a spider web. Dong Hanzhu coldly sneered, "Come, this is a good opportunity to stretch my muscles." Dong Hanzhu shot into the skies. The ground exploded and Dong Hanzhu shot into the skies. With a wave of his hand, a dark steel staff appeared in his hand. With a loud shout, he swung it upwards. The stone staff collided with the dark steel staff in midair. Space twisted and a heaven-shaking explosion erupted, billowing out in all directions. The black ape's staff shook back and nearly fell out of his hands. It roared out loud and managed to hold on to it. Dong Hanzhu felt as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face. He fell down from the skies and smashed into the ground, forming a terrifying pit. He licked his lips. His arms shook and his bones began to emit explosive crackling sounds. His body actually grew in size. Wonderful! But at this time, before he could do anything, the dragon spear in Zhao Qinyuan's hand shook and thrust into the ground like a bolt of lightning. A deep and pained roar echoed out from deep within the earth. Immediately, the entire mountain valley began to violently tumble, as if great waves were set off. Zhao Qinyuan's eyes brightened. The dragon spear in his hand fiercely trembled, and he took a step backwards. In the next moment, the ground exploded, and a terrifying maw broke out from the earth. The maw came together, and a horrifying sound rang out. Earth Demon Dragon. Su Guzi's pupils shrank, and his complexion darkened. Because of the demonic nature of demon beasts, it was difficult for them to coexist unless they were of the same bloodline. Commander-level demon beasts were even more so. They often divided up their own territories, and if a commander-level demon beast were to casually intrude, it would be regarded as an invasion and a great battle would ensue. But today, two commander-level demon beasts had appeared and joined forces to attack them. This was abnormal. As Su Guzi's thoughts raced, above everyone's heads, blood-red lines began to appear on the stones that were blocked by the shadow net, as if they were the bloodlines of a living being. Su Guzi's eyes flashed. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He glanced up and then lowered his head. In the next moment, these giant stones soared into the air and gathered together, turning into a terrifying stone giant. Magma tumbled about its mouth, nose, eyes, and ears. Raging flames burned and released a terrifyingly high temperature. From high above, the stone giant was like a mountain peak, casting a shadow that covered the phoenix carriage. Chapter 503. The ground instantly melted, turning into tumbling magma. Waves of heat surged out, burning and twisting the air. But at this moment, a smear of black appeared. It was like a speck of ink falling into a crimson sea. After a slight pause, it began to expand outwards at an astonishing speed. Wherever the ink spread, everything was frozen solid. The raging flames and magma that had been raging just a moment ago instantly turned into giant blocks of black ice. A cold chill rose up, causing the temperature to plummet. Icicles condensed in the air, slowly falling to the ground. Gotcha! Cracks appeared on the black ice. Then, a second, a third, and finally more and more cracks appeared. The entire block of ice shattered into countless pieces and fell to the ground, revealing the crimson red within. The flames and magma were actually frozen as they burned. The luxurious and noble phoenix carriage's appearance had changed greatly. On the soft curtains, a layer of black circles had been drawn on the edges of the golden runes. The terrifying black flames were being released from these black circles. Zhou Fenghuang's eyes were pitch black, like the eternal darkness of the starry skies. Black and gold runes crawled up her fair and beautiful face, causing her to lose all of her charm and be replaced with an austere, killing intent. She lifted a hand. With a cry, the phantom of a divine black phoenix appeared in the skies above the phoenix carriage. Its icy cold eyes glared at the giant rock demon. And at this time, the fourth commander-level demon, Beast, appeared. Before it even appeared, a layer of pale green fog spread through the air. The lush and verdant plants on both sides of the mountain valley seemed to be sucked out of their vitality as soon as they were touched by this fog. Yellow spots began to appear, turning pitch black and finally turning into powder that fell to the ground. Zhuo complexion changed. "Be careful, there's poison gas." He instantly sealed off his body. It was unknown what method he used, but a layer of blue light covered his body. Fluctuations fluctuated, faintly forming the shape of a suit of armor. Puff! There was a muffled sound, as if a great umbrella had been opened. A white spiderweb appeared above Zhuo Lanyue's head. What made one's scalp tingle was that every strand of this spiderweb was covered with dense black fangs, as if they were ferocious maws. After covering Zhuo Lanyue, the web fiercely shrank. The black fangs crisscrossed together like countless sharp knives, ready to shred their prey to pieces. The fourth commander-level magical beast finally appeared. It was as fast as a shadow, pouncing on the prey that was trapped like a spiderweb. Its 8 slender limbs pierced in like lightning. Unfortunately, the leg that stabbed out didn't feel the delightful feeling of flesh and blood being torn apart. Instead, it felt as if it had fallen into a quagmire. Bang! The spiderweb exploded and a fist punched out. It was wrapped in a layer of scales condensed from demonic energy, as if it had completed some sort of transformation. The 7-eyed demon spider's 8 limbs suddenly exerted force, narrowly dodging the attack aimed at its abdomen. It opened its mouth and let out a mournful howl. "Umph!" Zhuo Lanyue sneered, as if he didn't sense the pain in his soul at all. He strode forwards and punched out again. The 7-eyed demon spider opened its mouth, but what it spat out was not a spiderweb, but a ball of green mucus. Left grasping Moon turned his fist into a palm strike. The green goo was sent flying away, and as luck would have it, it flew straight toward Xinyu. Bang! The green goo exploded. Several times more poisonous green fog instantly spread out, submerging Qinyu's figure. Hesitation flashed in Zhuo Lanyue's eyes. He didn't believe that with Qinyu's cultivation, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. But at this time, he didn't have time to think about it. The 7-eyed demon spider's limbs had already pierced out like lightning. Within the green poison fog, Qin Yu had a calm expression. Runes began to appear on his right index finger. Under his deliberate control, he didn't absorb the poison fog, but rather used it as his best barrier. Unless one was like him and had the ability to be immune to poison, then whether it was these fellows with ulterior motives or the powerful demon beast that joined hands to hunt them down, none of them were willing to approach the poison fog spewed out by the commander-level magical beast. If Qin Yu stayed in the poison fog, he could temporarily escape from this chaotic slaughter and watch the actions of these people from the sidelines. On the lonely peak where everyone had gathered, Su Guzi's minor summer treasure had been able to conceal one's aura and conceal yin and yang senses. But he had no way to conceal everyone's soul fluctuations. When they met in private, everyone was careful not to release the least bit of their aura. But what they didn't know was that with the help of the cosmic sea crossbell, there was nothing they could hide from Qin Yu. In Mimi's words, the life forms of your world were extremely sinister. Qin Yu also thought this. For instance, the fiendish Dong Hanju, who was known to be ruthless and overbearing, a person who lacked a single cord in his head, was actually able to hold his own against Su Guzi. He turned around and had a brief meeting with the sword-wielding Li Mingxian. For instance, when Zuolanjue paid a visit to Zhou Fenghuang, he didn't know what the two of them spoke about, but the joy in their soul fluctuations was clear. It was clear the two had reached some sort of agreement. After bidding his farewells, Zuolanjue immediately went to find Mu Qingwan. The two of them had a rather congenial conversation. For instance, even though Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qingwan had opposed each other in front of everyone and were jealous of each other, the truth was that their relationship wasn't so bad. In this chaotic mess, there were two exceptions. One was Zhao Qinyuan, who had arrived last, and the other was the snoring Sun Zifu. Along the way, nearly everyone had come into private contact with Zhao Qinyuan, but in the end they hadn't harvested anything. This could be seen as the self-confidence of a powerhouse. Thinking about it, there was only one last fool left. He was still having a very important sweet dream. Qin Yu shook his head. His eyes fell onto the Phoenix lawn carriage and Sun Zifu, who was nervously looking at them. Young Master Sun couldn't see him, but Qin Yu could see every minute expression on Sun Zifu's face. He was indeed worried. This bastard wasn't completely black-hearted. Qin Yu's complexion eased a little, but he wouldn't say or do anything. No matter what he thought, Sun Zifu's actions had already placed him in a perilous situation. For instance, that so-called family heirloom, life-saving jade pendant. That was indeed a good thing, but what was hidden inside, although Qin Yu didn't know what it was, he definitely wouldn't touch it. Whatever. He would continue watching for now. If Sun Zifu realized his error, Qin Yu didn't mind giving him a chance to make a new choice. Otherwise, he would stand on the opposite side of these people and seek his own death. The Earth Demon Dragon was extremely strong. Even amongst commander-level demon beasts, it was a peak existence. Its attacks were swift and fierce, and its defensive abilities were astonishing. Zhao Qinyuan's dragon spear was like a swimming dragon, but he was only able to knock it back and forth. He wasn't able to kill it in a short period of time, and he even had to be careful of its sudden and fierce attacks. The black ape that wielded the stone staff had an inconceivably powerful mortal body. In addition to its infinite strength, every strike contained a terrifying strength that could annihilate all. Dong Hanju's path was completely the same as his. As the two sides fought, it was like a collision of stars. Rumble, 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 their auras filling the skies. Zuolanjue's battle with the seven-eyed demon spider was far more mediocre than the previous two. In particular, when both sides fought, they withdrew as soon as they made contact, as if there was a deep dread between them. Zhou Fenghuang, who was fighting the rock demon giant alone, was actually the most relaxed out of everyone. Her black phoenix black flames naturally restrained the rock demon giant's strength. Wherever the black flames passed, all things in the world would freeze. In this chaotic battle, Li Mingxian felt a bit helpless. It was true that his heart had been moved by the woman beside him. Now is the time for him to display his strength and have the other side look at him in a new light. Unfortunately, None of the 4 commander-level demon beasts chose to attack them. Taking the initiative to attack, he wasn't an idiot. Although everyone was working together and had signed a demonic path contract, the chances of them harming each other weren't high. But preserving his strength so that he was in his peak state was undoubtedly the best choice. But if Li Mingxian could think of this, others could also naturally think of it. They were fighting a bloody battle from the sidelines, and you were just watching from the sidelines. Thus, when Zhuolanyu fought the 7-eyed demon spider, he was careless and was forced back. He just happened to pass by Li Mingxuan's 100-sword boat and fall behind. His face paled, and his breathing became rapid. Fellow Taoist Li, Miss Mu, I have accidentally breathed in the poison fog. Please help me. Mu Qingwan respectfully said, Fellow Taoist Zhua, please rest for the time being. Leave it to us. As she spoke, she eagerly looked over. The bit of anger in Li Mingxuan's heart immediately dissipated, replaced by a heroic spirit. Sister, rest assured that with me here, I won't allow this ugly demon beast to harm you in the least. Humph. Surname Zhua. I'll remember this first. He lifted a hand and slapped out. The 100-sword boat trembled and howled as it flew out. The tip shrank and shrank, transforming into a terrifying greatsword. Black infernal energy tumbled about, nearly condensing into essence. Phantoms of living beings appeared, all of them rearing their heads back and howling. Using a sword to forge a boat, the boat was a sword. Although it was incomplete, 100 broken parts were truly fierce. It was unknown how much blood and slaughter it had been stained with, but when it merged together, one could imagine how terrifying its might was. With a single sword strike, infernal energy shocked the world. Before it even slashed down, it had already seized the enemy's heart and soul. The 7-eyed demon spider screeched. With a crisp sound, one of its legs beneath its abdomen was severed at the base. Whoosh, like an arrow released from a bow, it shot straight towards the 100-sword boat. Both sides collided. The leg violently trembled. After a single breath of time, the surface of the leg began to crack, and then it collapsed into fragments that filled the skies. The 7-eyed demon spider seemed to have already expected this. It instantly crouched on the ground, hiding its soft abdomen beneath the carapace on its back. Ding, ding, dang, dang. Like a storm, countless large and small depressions appeared on the surface of the 7-eyed demon spider's carapace, leaving behind unremarkable white marks. As for Li Mingxian, he suffered a great loss. As he dodged, not only were several holes torn in his robes, but there was also a wound on his face. What left him even more furious was that there was no blood flowing out from this wound. Rather, there was a faint numbness that rapidly spread outwards. His handsome face began to swell and blacken at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he had turned from a handsome young man into an ugly wild boar. At this time, Li Mingxian was truly angered to the point where 1 Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to the heavens. With a loud roar, the 100-sword boat shrank once more. It was now only slightly larger than an ordinary flying sword, but the aura it emitted was terrifying to the extreme. The billowing infernal energy completely condensed into fog. Vicious spirits gathered within, constantly roaring and roaring. Tiny cracks appeared all around the 100-sword boat. This small world itself couldn't withstand its current strength. Zhuolanyue's pupils shrank, a trace of shock in his eyes. He clearly didn't expect Li Mingxian to have such strength. Mu Qingwan was startled. A trace of regret flashed in her eyes, because this could be considered a trump card. Within the green poison fog, Qin Yu had a solemn expression. If he hadn't been prepared for Li Mingxuan's attack, it wouldn't have been easy. As he thought, those that had the qualifications to come here weren't easy to deal with. He needed to be a bit more cautious. However, with his guard up, the 100-sword boat in Li Mingxuan's hands could only be considered a threat and not a hidden danger. This was also an important reason why he had hidden himself in the poison fog and decided to coldly watch on from the sidelines. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Commander-level demon beasts were tyrannical to the extreme. Even if he tried to hide himself, he would still be forced to reveal some of his abilities. These people didn't have any good intentions towards him. If he could understand a little more, there would be no harm in doing so. Li Mingxian attacked with hatred in his heart. The power of the 100-sword boat erupted, and the seven-eyed demon spider was forced back again and again. Of the 8 legs under its abdomen, only 4 remained. However, it seemed to have an extremely strong regenerative ability. After its legs were cut off, they quickly grew back. However, the color of these newly grown legs was much thinner, and they were extremely fragile. They could only support its body in moving. "Evil creature, die for me!" Li Mingxian roared out, his momentum truly unparalleled. But as one looked at his swollen and black head, they couldn't help but want to laugh. The 100-sword boat had shrunk even further. It was now smaller than a normal flying sword. The slaughter energy that tumbled on its surface began to burn, turning into gray flames. These flames were similar to Zhou Fenghuang's Black Phoenix True Fire. They were icy cold without the least bit of heat, but they were even colder and gloomier. Just a glance at them was enough to make one shiver all over. Shua, the 100-sword boat, slashed down. The gray flames condensed into a line, its speed faster than lightning. The seven-eyed demon spider had this name because it had 7 eyes on its head, 3 on the left and right, and 1 between its eyebrows. The 6 eyes were open all year round, but the eye between its eyebrows was closed all year round. This was where its terror lay. This eye was also known as the Eye of Samsara. In the legends, it was said that it could open up a Samsara channel and banish souls. Even if it wasn't as terrifying as the legends made it out to be, anyone struck by this supernatural ability would at least suffer severe wounds that would be difficult to treat. It had to be known that the soul was where the spirituality of a living being resided. If one was injured too heavily, they would damage their source. Even if they managed to survive, they would have no future to speak of. Now, the seven-eyed demon spider felt an intense crisis coming from this sword. It screamed and closed its 6 eyes. As it trembled, the eye between its eyebrows split open. Li Mingxian, who was filled with endless anger, suddenly shivered. Fear rose up from the depths of his heart, instantly soaking through his entire body. Without any hesitation, he fell to the ground. In the next moment, a white light flew past his nose. Li Mingxuan's back was instantly soaked with a cold sweat. Even though he hadn't touched it, he could still feel an indescribable horror from this white light. This was a strength that was enough to thoroughly exterminate him without leaving him with the slightest chance of survival. The seven-eyed demon spider's 7th eye, Li Mingxuan's heart was filled with lingering fear. In his rage, he had forgotten the most terrifying strength of this demon beast. Luckily, he had reacted just a bit faster. Otherwise, he would have already suffered a tragedy. Zhou Fenghuang coldly sneered. She lifted her hand and sprinkled out Black Phoenix True Fire, freezing everything it touched and forcing the rock demon giant to retreat again and again. Although she had the advantage of suppressing it in strength, no one dared to underestimate the strength of a commander-level demon beast. For her to be able to accomplish this was enough to make others look at her in a new light. When it came to Zhao Qianyuan, the infatuation she displayed was part of her acting. But to say that she wasn't tempted at all would be a lie. If she could move him a little today, that would naturally be for the best. Thinking of this, Zhou Fenghuang became increasingly calm. Every movement she made was filled with charm. As she stood atop the incomparably dignified phoenix carriage, she truly seemed like a phoenix maiden descending from the highest heavens. Unfortunately, there was a burden behind her. Sun Zifu wasn't bad. Although he was a bit clever, he wasn't a shrewd person. If she were to give herself to him, it wouldn't be difficult for her to become the master of the family in the future. She might even be able to indirectly control the massive ship that was the Sun family. Wealth moved the hearts of men. When one's wealth surpassed a certain limit, no one could underestimate them in the least. The Sun family had the qualifications to not be underestimated. Zhou Fenghuang had once hesitated. She had also tried to persuade herself that Sun Zifu was a good choice, but she was still unwilling in her heart. As all sorts of thoughts raced through her mind, a horrifying aura suddenly descended upon her heart. Zhou Fenghuang was shocked. Her eyes turned pitch black, and she fiercely looked forwards. A misty white light howled out from the distance. Passing through this white light was the seven-eyed demon spider. Her soul trembled and screamed, telling her just how terrifying this white light was. If she touched it, she wouldn't be able to retreat. Her feet moved, but she immediately paused. This was because Zhou Fenghuang suddenly thought of Sun Zifu, who was right behind her. If she avoided it, then with Sun Zifu's strength, there was no way he could survive. In other words, he might die. A trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes, but it was only a trace. Zhou Fenghuang had thoughts towards the ancient tree monster, so she naturally wouldn't allow herself to be severely wounded ahead of time. She might even be able to bury her entire future along with her. So, after pausing for a moment, Zhou Fenghuang gently floated forwards. Sun Zifu's eyes widened. As he looked at the white light howling towards him, he was stunned at first, but then it turned into a deep fear. At this moment, his mind was blank. Suddenly, a black shadow appeared in his peripheral vision. It rushed in front of him like a bolt of lightning and grasped out a hand. Qin Yu felt his entire body turn cold, as if he had fallen into an ancient cave of ice. His mortal body and soul shivered beneath this chill. Within his soul space, faint traces of white frost appeared, rapidly spreading outwards. The white light hung in the air, ripples spreading outwards. At this moment, Qin Yu could feel an intense threat, as if the world would collapse. And the source of this threat came from the ripples around the white light, as if an extremely terrifying existence was about to appear. Unfortunately, Qin Yu didn't, or to be more accurate, it was the existence within his soul space that didn't have a chance to appear. With a flash of light, the cosmic sea cross bell vanished. Mimi's eyes widened as she looked at the white light. She licked her lips. Suddenly, her complexion changed. She angrily said, "You dare to steal it from me?" Her hand grasped forwards. Unfortunately, the purple moon was even faster. The halo of light that fell down instantly swept away half of the white light. In the blink of an eye, the white frost that had condensed in his soul space and was preparing to use its ultimate move was cleanly divided up. With half of the white light in her hand, Mimi clenched her teeth. "Get it back to me." The purple moon was silent, perhaps disdainful of responding. After a long time, Mimi coldly snorted and swallowed the white light, restoring her original appearance. Chapter 504. The seven-eyed demon spider had already been executed. Its fierce head with 7 eyes had been cut in half, and its blood mixed with green venom was scattered everywhere. Li Mingxian let out a long breath of relief. He suddenly felt a bit of pride in himself. In the end, he was the one who had the last laugh. Thus, he subconsciously turned his head to look at the white light that had nearly killed him. Where had it run off to? Then, his mouth suddenly opened wide. Zhuo Lanyue's complexion was strange. There was a look of surprise on his face, as well as a look of ridicule on his face. What benefits had Sun Zifu promised him? He had risked his life to save him. Yao Bin, Yao Bin, are you seeking your own death? But to him, this was clearly a good thing. As long as he could obtain the heaven-mending stone, his strength would rise in the near future. Su Guzi was surprised. He never thought that this would be the final result. Regardless of what sort of agreement Sun Zifu and Yao Bin had reached in private, just the courage of Sun Zifu not hesitating to help even though he knew death was near was enough to be admired. But admiration was admiration. Su Guzi didn't approve of this method. And most importantly, if Yao Bin died, how would he deal with the backlash of the monster race bloodline? Zhao Qinyuan's battle with the Earth Demon Dragon seemed fierce and dangerous, but the truth was that everything was under his control. It was just that he didn't want to consume too much energy to kill it. Thus, he had spare energy to calmly observe the entire battlefield. He wasn't the only smart person here. If he could think of this, then Zhao Qianyuan could naturally think of it as well. After Li Mingxian avoided the white light from the seven-eyed demon spider's seventh eye by a hair, he knew that Zhou Fengwang would face a choice. And as expected, this proud daughter of heaven hesitated for a moment and then dodged without hesitation. Ridicule rose in his heart, but his eyes remained indifferent. He had risen from humble beginnings and walked step by step to where he was today. He had already developed a heart of stone. He wouldn't do anything. Whether Sun Zifu died or was injured, that was his choice and his destiny. It had nothing to do with him. Accidents always occurred when one was defenseless. This was why it was called an accident. Sion Zhao's eyebrows arched up. He watched as Qin Yu broke through the fog, as Qin Yu stepped down, as Qin Yu blocked in front of him, and as Qin Yu raised his hand. Decisive and resolute, without the least bit of hesitation. If he had hesitated even the tiniest bit, he would have lost the chance to save Qin Yu. Hiding in the poisonous fog and sitting on the fishing platform, this was clearly the choice of a smart person. What was the reason that made him choose to attack? Was it really because Sun Zifu had made a huge promise to him in private? But in this world, what could be more important than one's own life and future? Zhao Qianyuan couldn't figure out what was going on, but there was one thing he was sure of, and that was that nothing would happen to Yao Bin. How could a person who could make him feel fear in his heart after sensing his aura so easily place himself in a hopeless situation? His eyes flickered, and he became even more curious about this unfamiliar companion of his. Zhou Fenghuang's face tightened, and her beautiful eyes widened. She was shocked and ashamed, but in the blink of an eye, she completely hid it. She was not wrong. With how terrifying the seven-eyed demon spider was, the first thought anyone would have when facing the white light would be to protect themselves. Not to mention that she had yet to marry Sun Zifu. Even if the two of them were husband and wife, her choice would not change. She forced herself to remain calm, but the gazes of the people around her were like invisible flames, causing her to feel a burning pain. In particular, when Zhao Qianyuan swept his gaze over her. Although his eyes were faint, she could still feel the coldness in them. Zhou Fengwang clenched her fists, her nails piercing into her palms. She raised her head, revealing her pure white neck to maintain her pride. Escaping from death was a very simple and straightforward phrase, but only those who had personally experienced it would understand its true meaning. Sun Zifu's shivering body stiffened like iron. He stared at the black-robed figure in front of him, unable to regain his composure for a long time. Yao Bin saved him. How could he dare? Moreover, there was no reason at all. Although the demon body tempering pill was precious, compared to his life and future, it was nothing at all. But Yao Bin had moved, resolutely blocking in front of him. There was only one explanation for all of this. Yao Bin had regarded him as a friend. Thus he had helped him without hesitation in this dangerous moment. As soon as Sun Zifu thought of this, he was incomparably moved. Then he felt ashamed. Yao Bin had regarded him as a friend, but he had secretly conspired with everyone else to place him in a dangerous situation. If there was a crack in the ground, Sun Zifu would have jumped right in. But right now, there was an even more important matter. Fellow Taoist Yao, how are you? He rushed down from the phoenix carriage. But before he could support him, Qin Yu dodged to the side. I'm fine. Qin Yu glanced at him. Shame, gratitude, worry, and all sorts of other emotions wove together on his face. Then he turned and left. Yao Bin was stunned. His eyes began to heat up, and he quickly lowered his head, not wanting to be seen by others. He was fine. How could he be fine? It had to be known that this was the destructive light of the seven-eyed demon spider's seventh eye. If he was struck by it, even if he didn't die, he would still be crippled. Yao Bin didn't want him to worry or feel guilty, so he forced himself to say that he was fine. He even deliberately put on an indifferent expression. He definitely didn't want him to say anything more. Yao Bin must have endured a great deal. He thought back to how he had been chased down by the ancient tree monster avatar, how he had encountered the demon wolf pack, and how he had arrived here one step at a time. He had received far too many graciousness from Yao Bin. How could he have been blinded by lard? How could he have agreed to plot against him with others? Sun Zifu, ask yourself honestly, in your entire life, have you ever met a friend who treated you with such sincerity? To harm him, you are worse than a dog or pig. The reason Qin Yu turned and left was because nothing had happened to him. As for why he had suddenly tried to save them, in truth, this was simply an urgent request of the cosmic sea-cross bell. The little girl had screamed in excitement, saying that eating this white light would be of great benefit to her. Qin Yu had acted. Cough, cough. So when he faced Sun Zifu's complex and grateful eyes just now, even though Qin Yu's skin had been tempered to the extreme, he still couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. Of course, it was best to leave first. After the seven-eyed demon spider died, the black ape, earth demon dragon, and rock demon giant saw that they weren't its match. They roared and fled. As commander-level demon beasts, if they wanted to escape, it was impossible to stop them unless they used all of their abilities. So, after paying a price, the three commander-level demon beasts soon vanished from sight. After a short period of rest, the group continued onwards. More and more people came to chat with Sun Zifu, their faces full of gratitude. They said that those who survived a calamity would surely have good fortune in the future. Of course, most of them were trying to find out what sort of agreement or relationship there was between him and Yao Bin that the latter would risk everything to save him. Young Master Sun tried to change the subject, but they were all fooled. He lay down on a soft blanket, a delicate fragrance lingering in his nose. Beside him, Zhou Fenghuang's eyes were red. She said in annoyance, "Brother, it was all my fault. I was frightened for a moment and instinctively avoided him. Luckily, brother, you were fine. Otherwise, even if I were to die 10,000 times, I still wouldn't be able to relieve the guilt in my heart. Brother, you must hate me a lot right now, but I really didn't do it on purpose. I have never faced death before, so I only knew fear." Sun Zifu waved his hand. Don't blame sister, don't blame sister. In that sort of situation, self-preservation is a human instinct. I can certainly understand. He stretched out his arms. Look, I'm fine. Zhou Fenghuang's eyes turned even redder. Thank you, brother, thank you. She blamed herself once more. It took Sun Zifu a great deal of effort to barely calm her down. That's right. Just what benefits did brother promise Yao Bin that he would risk his life like this? Sun Zifu proudly smiled. Then he seemed to think of something. This matter involves a secret of the Sun family. Forgive me for not being able to tell sister. He smacked his lips. It seemed he couldn't brag about it, but he also felt a bit regretful. Zhou Fenghuang smiled and nodded. Since it involves a secret of the Sun family, it is natural for brother to keep it a secret. Rest for a while first. Once we set up camp at night, I will personally make some dishes and warm up some jugs of wine to help brother calm down. Sun Zifu nodded. I'm really a bit tired. Zhou Fenghuang turned and left the Phoenix carriage. Sun Zifu lay down on the blanket and comfortably sighed. But his eyes didn't seem tired at all. After experiencing the joint attack of 4 commander-level demon beasts, the group had become more cautious. After some discussion, they decided that they wouldn't continue their journey at night when the demon beasts could increase their strength in order to avoid being surrounded and killed. Thus, they decided to set up camp. Su Guzi took up this responsibility. He was responsible for laying down the camp's array formation so that no demon beasts would disturb their rest. In the dark of night, Sun Zifu, who had narrowly escaped death, became the focus of everyone. Besides Zhao Qinyuan and the healing Qin Yu, everyone else raised their cups and toasted him. Perhaps because she wanted to dispel any ill feelings, Zhou Fenghuang did her best. It was unknown where she obtained many precious materials, but she was able to craft a complete set of banquets. Everyone ate, drank, and laughed. Sun Zifu didn't refuse anyone. In his excited mood, he soon drank too much. Zhou Fenghuang called out several times, but as she saw him leaning against the campfire, holding onto a blanket and sleeping soundly, she revealed a look of disdain and no longer called out to him. After all, it was a bit inconvenient for the two of them to sleep together in the Phoenix carriage at night. She was happy to do so. As the night deepened, Everyone set up their own arrangements and began to cultivate. After today's great battle with the 4 commander-level demon beasts, everyone had suffered losses. Naturally, they had to restore themselves to peak condition as soon as possible. Beside the campfire, the drunken and unconscious son Zifu muttered several words to himself as he struggled to crawl up. He fiddled with his waist a few times, seeming to think of something. Then, he staggered towards the edge of the camp. In the darkness, Qin Yu's eyes slowly opened. He looked at young Master Sun, who was standing several dozen feet away, angrily pissing himself in the wind. "Fellow Taoist Yao, I apologize. Time is of the essence, so don't ask anything. Just listen to me." Sun Zifu's voice sounded out in his ears. "Fellow Taoist Yao, the jade pendant that I gave you that day, you absolutely must not wear it with you, otherwise there will be great danger. But you cannot throw it away, otherwise Su Guzi will immediately sense it. It is best if you can find a way to seal it away so that it can't touch your aura. Also, hunting down the ancient tree monster is not as simple as fellow Taoists knowing it. The ancient tree monster in this small world is the remnant body of a great emperor of the monster race. It has been rooted here for countless years and has absorbed the demonic energy of this small world. Demon blood crystals have already formed within its body. To those of my demonic path, this is an inconceivable treasure. If you can obtain it and refine it, you will definitely be able to awaken your bloodline. If your bloodline has already awakened, you can borrow the strength of the demon blood crystal to complete your advancement. Everyone here has evil intentions towards fellow Taoist Yao. You must be careful not to be schemed against by others. I know that I have wronged you. Tonight, I pretended to be drunk and told you all of this in order to feel at ease. I don't dare to ask for anything more." He casually shook his hand and let out a comfortable sigh. Then, he pulled up his pants and walked away. He stumbled over to the campfire and fell asleep once more. Qin Yu faintly smiled. He could roughly guess why Sun Zifu had undergone such a great change. Demon blood crystals? His eyes flashed, and he inadvertently swept his eyes over the camp. Young Master Sun thought himself smart, but what he didn't know was that his actions weren't a secret at all. In the tent, Su Guzi flicked his sleeves. The scene in front of him twisted for a moment before vanishing from sight. He turned around and hesitated for a moment. What does fellow Taoists would think? Zhuolanyu didn't answer and instead asked, "Does Brother Su suspect Sun Zifu?" Su Guzi remained expressionless. "Fellow Taoists, why are you avoiding the important and focusing on the trivial? You should know that this isn't what I'm concerned about." Zhuolanyu smiled. "I don't know." He stood up and paced back and forth several times. "You and I both know how terrifying the seven-eyed demon spider is. Yaobin is currently safe and sound, and while I don't know the reason for this, there's one thing I can be sure of. This person is unfathomably deep." Su Guzi's eyes darkened. "This is what I'm worried about. A chess piece that has already been set in place suddenly has the ability to resist. I find it hard to feel at ease." Zhuolanyu lightly said, "Brother Su has already remedied the situation. If not for this, why would you allow Sun Zifu to leak information to him?" He paused for a moment. Now that he knows about the existence of the demon blood crystal, even if he knows he's been schemed against, his best choice would still be to remain silent. Of course, the premise of this is that he is truly in an unharmed state. Otherwise, Su Guzi leisurely said, he will choose to leave. Zhuolanyu smiled. "So, we just need to be patient and wait a little longer." The next day, as the skies brightened, everyone walked out of their tents. After a hangover, young Master Sun was finally willing to wake up. He awkwardly smiled and began to wash himself. Before he could clean himself up, the tranquility of the morning was broken by something. Qin Yu bid his farewells and left on his own initiative. He didn't say why, but everyone had already filled in their own thoughts. Indeed, that white light from yesterday wasn't easy to deal with. Sun Zifu opened his mouth to speak, but in the end he fell silent. It was dangerous to leave the group, but if he continued to stay here, he feared it would be difficult to escape this calamity. Su Guzi lightly sighed. If fellow Taoist Yao insists on doing this, then I won't try to persuade you any further. It's just that this small world is filled with perils. Fellow Taoist should be careful. Qin Yu cupped his hands together and turned to leave. Wait a moment. Sun Zifu tossed it over. With a cold expression, he said, Fellow Taoist Yao, since you're leaving halfway, please return the precious jade I gave you. What am I doing? Oh, I must be going crazy. Qin Yu glanced at him. He took out the jade pendant and placed it in Sun Zifu's hand. His feet moved, and he soon vanished from sight. Seeing Qin Yu be so straightforward, Sun Zifu was stunned for a moment. Then he grit his teeth. For better or worse, he was still a man. He might as well pay back his life. Yao Bin, this is all I can do. I hope that their thoughts are all on the ancient tree monster, and they will let you live. Sun Zifu took a deep breath and turned around. He smiled and said, Everyone, let's hurry on our way. At this moment, he could clearly see the surprise in everyone's eyes. In particular, Zhou Fenghuang's eyes were particularly complex. Chapter 505. Zuolan Yue had a strange look in his eyes. He chuckled. Brother Sun, you are truly admirable. He cupped his hands together and turned to leave. Su Guzi shook his head. Fellow Taoist Sun, I wish you good luck. Yao Bin was the chosen one and would suffer a backlash from the monster race's bloodline. Now that Sun Zifu had taken the initiative to ask for the jade pendant, he naturally had to replace him. Young Master Sun's image of righteousness reaching the clouds and a man supporting the heavens and earth wasn't even able to maintain it for 3 breaths of time before he was beaten into a bitter gourd. His complexion paled, then turned black, and finally paled. His eyes wavered and lost focus. His heart tumbled and tumbled. There was only a single thought left in his mind. The chances of a monster race bloodline backlash shouldn't be too high, right? The Cosmic Sea Cross Bell had made a request, and Qin Yu had conveniently saved Sun Zifu. Although this had happened suddenly, Qin Yu soon understood his situation. The seven-eyed demon spider's 7th eye supernatural ability was extremely powerful. If he was safe and sound after receiving it, this would inevitably arouse the dread of others. These people originally harbored ill intentions towards him. Now that they discovered that a chess piece had the ability to jump out of the chessboard, what would happen next could be guessed even with a pinky finger. If he stayed, he feared he would continue probing him. No matter how well he hid himself, sooner or later he would reveal a flaw. Once these people discovered that he had the strength to even fight Zhao Qinyuan, wouldn't they all go crazy? If it were any other problem, he might be able to turn hostility into friendship. But these people wanted Qin Yu to die. How could a life or death enmity be so easily forgotten? Moreover, the ancient tree monster hunt was imminent. These people had likely already divided up the benefits. Would they be willing to let Qin Yu suddenly appear and take a big bite out of it? They might as well retreat. He vanished from everyone's sight and hid in the shadows. With the Cosmic Sea Cross Bell, these people's soul fluctuations were like a lighthouse. It was impossible to lose track of them. Once he found the ancient tree monster, perhaps he would have a chance to take advantage of the situation. Of course, Qin Yu's actions weren't without its disadvantages. If he chose to leave today, others would inevitably think of the white light he withstood yesterday. Perhaps some people would already think that he was severely wounded, so he had no choice but to retreat. In particular, he had already accepted Sun Zifu's tip and learned of the demon blood crystal's existence. Perhaps someone would soon catch up. But would Qin Yu care about these disadvantages? Sun Zifu remained in the carriage, but Zhou Fenghuang's attitude had become cold. The Sun family's wealth was astonishing, and no one dared to underestimate them. However, as a last resort, some things still had to be done. Sun Zifu was a direct descendant of the Sun family. If there were no accidents, he would inherit the position of the Sun family patriarch in the future and become an influential figure. However, it was precisely because of this that he couldn't leave the small world in one piece. That was because he would never forget today's events. The others in the squad would not allow him to have another powerful enemy in the future. Since there was no way to save him, then let him die. Zhou Fenghuang was well aware of this point. Naturally, she couldn't continue approaching him and give others the wrong impression that they were still entangled. Night fell, and it was time to set up camp. Zhou Fenghuang took a step forward and flew away like a colorful phoenix. Sun Zifu walked down silently. His eyes swept across the ground, and his face stiffened, because at this moment, a person was missing from the group. It was Zuolanwe. Yao Bin, in the end, I still couldn't help you. Whether you live or die, it all depends on your luck. There was no one in the thick grass. It was mixed with thorns and thorny vines. Even a thick-skinned wild boar would have a layer of flesh scraped off if it were a drill in here. A black-robed figure quietly walked through. His aura was completely sealed off, and his footsteps were silent. He was like an ethereal shadow. Invisible fluctuations of strength flowed, like a river. Wherever he passed, the weeds, thorns, and thorny vines quietly bent down, opening a path for him to pass through. Suddenly, the black-robed figure frowned. He slowly looked up to reveal a calm face. It was Qinyu. His voice was a bit curious. I can't figure it out. How did you find me? Up ahead, thorns covered the ground. Zuolanwe stepped out. I'm also curious as to how Brother Yao discovered my whereabouts. Qinyu shook his head. It looks like fellow Taoist Zhuo doesn't plan on telling me. Zuolanwe smiled. Everyone has their own secrets. Perhaps it would be better to leave a bit of mystery in this world. Qinyu's eyes flashed. Since fellow Taoist Zhuo knows that I've been following you all this time, you should have guessed that yesterday's white light didn't harm me. He paused for a moment and then said in an icy voice, even though you know this, you still dare to appear in front of me. It seems fellow Taoist Zhuo is quite confident in yourself. Zuolanwe had a light expression. Isn't Brother Yao also full of confidence? Qinyu lifted a hand. Please. Zuolanwe revealed a strange expression. Does Brother Yao not know that I have already made my move? Who? Crimson tongues of fire instantly appeared. They were like monstrous waves that swept out from all directions. But these flames had no temperature. To be more precise, they only had a shape, as if they were illusory. But the weeds, thorns, and everything else really did burn. They were quiet without any sound, turning into ashes that piled up on the ground. Qinyu stood within these illusory and indescribable flames. After a brief moment of confusion, he realized just how terrifying they were. He looked up, his eyes shining with shock. He finally understood why Zuolanwe was so confident. This was because he indeed had the strength to roll over everything. Zuolanwe raised his hands and laughed heartily. Welcome to my world. These flames were the elementary form of a world. And a world was a level that only unsurpassed calamity, immortal realm existences had the qualifications to touch. No wonder Zuolanwe dared to brazenly attack, even though he knew Qinyu was hiding his strength. It was because he had some sort of good fortune that allowed him to control a portion of the world's strength. At this moment, Qinyu's mind shook. The thought that he couldn't underestimate anyone in this world appeared in his mind once more. But the first person he thought of was actually Zhao Qinyuan. That person had been officially conferred the title of High Prince by the Demonic Path and was known as the #1 junior of the Demonic Path. Just how strong was he? This was because Zuolanwe's fear of him wasn't fake. He really wanted to experience it for himself. Qinyu sighed inwardly. But this was destined to be a matter of the future. Right now, he had to first send away Zuolanwe. These flames that existed between reality and illusion possessed a portion of the world's might. Even if it was only the tiniest portion, it wasn't something Qinyu could deal with. The reason he wasn't afraid was because although he didn't control the strength of this illusory world, it wasn't impossible for him to contend with it. Qinyu lifted a hand and pointed forwards. Space instantly collapsed. From the dark nothingness, the phantom of a great sun appeared. To be more precise, this was the first time since Qinyu obtained the little blue lamp that he had exposed it in front of others. Even if it was hidden by the sun's shadow, it still displayed Qinyu's attitude today. Zuolanwe had to die. The existence of the little blue lamp was his greatest secret. It could not be exposed. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, Qin Yu still had to thoroughly strangle it. The great sun phantom trembled. A fluctuation was released from it, summoning the flames to descend. Zhuo, who thought he had everything in his grasp, suddenly stiffened. His eyes filled with shock. The flames began to extinguish. Just like when they arrived, their speed was inconceivably fast. It was like a burning candle was swaying back and forth, emitting a little bit of light. But then it was directly extinguished by 2 fingers. That's right, it had been so easy. Zhuo seemed to suffer a heavy blow. His complexion paled and blood flowed out from his head. He knew that Qin Yu wasn't easy to deal with. Thus, he didn't dare to underestimate him and directly used his strongest attack. But he never imagined that the final result would be like this. As his eyes fell on Qin Yu, his arrogance, confidence, and killing intent all scattered away. All that was left over was an unfathomable fear. Zhuo turned and fled without hesitation. His eyes were filled with panic, but he didn't despair. He had a great destiny, and that was why he was able to reach his current height. Over the years, he had experienced countless dangers, but he had always been able to turn them into safety. Today would also be the same. He wouldn't die here. He absolutely wouldn't. His ears instantly buzzed. It felt as if millions of people were screaming in his ears. Waves of sound rolled out, wave after wave. It was like a giant spinning millstone, slowly grinding him apart. Pain surged forth. Zhuo tried his best to maintain a clear mind, but the elementary world had been broken, and he had suffered a severe backlash. His soul had already been severely wounded. So how could he resist this? Zhuo final thought raced through his mind. I really am going to die here. Bang! A large head exploded into pieces. Qin Yu's eyes were ice cold. His fingers touched the headless corpse like a sword. The strength of the cosmic sea-cross bell swept out like a wave of cold air, erasing all soul fluctuations. Since he wanted to kill someone, he naturally had to be prepared to be killed. As for Qin Yu, he had never liked trouble. He would never make the mistake of cutting weeds without removing the roots. Amidst the ashes, Zhuo corpse fell to the ground. This was a proud son of heaven with a mysterious background, someone who had an intense confidence in himself, someone who was filled with wild ambitions for the future. But now, he cut through the horizon like a meteor, vanishing in a flash. Something unexpected happened. Without warning, the corpse on the ground began to violently twitch, as if something were trying to drill out from within. Soon after, there was an inaudible howl. It was like an invisible sword that could cut apart a person's soul. Zhuo corpse withered, as if all of his flesh and blood had been stolen away. A blood-red bug flew out from his chest, shooting straight towards Qin Yu's chest. Unfortunately, before it could approach, Qin Yu drew back, not daring to touch it with his mortal body. He flicked his sleeves, and a silver light appeared. Bang! With a dull thumping sound, the blood-red bug was sent flying away. But Qin Yu's all-out attack of the path of metal had only left behind a shallow cut on its carapace. It hadn't caused any actual damage. Qin Yu's pupil shrank. This bug had a terrifying defense. Moreover, what was even more strange was that the cosmic sea-cross bell couldn't sense the soul aura of this bug, as if it were nothing more than a walking corpse. The blood-red bug stabilized itself. Its cruel eyes glared at Qin Yu before it turned and flew away, vanishing from sight. Qin Yu's complexion was heavy. If there were no soul fluctuations, then where did its spiritual wisdom come from? But this bug clearly seemed to hate him to the bone. Chapter 506. Within the camp, Zhao Qinyuan's eyes flashed open. He looked at the dark night behind him, a look of shock on his face. Just now, there were fluctuations of world strength. This was already astonishing enough. But what left him even more incredulous was that Zhuo, who had erupted with world strength, had actually died. Indeed, his senses hadn't been wrong. This Yao Bin was the one who had hidden himself the most. As he thought about how Su Guzi and the others had chosen him as a chess piece, Zhao Qinyuan revealed a mocking expression. After a moment of thought, he closed his eyes. He casually tapped a finger behind him, and a shadow flashed on the ground, instantly vanishing from sight. The aura of world strength was enough to frighten away all demon beasts that moved in the dark night. Thus, this place of ashes was a good place to stay at night. Qinyu chose a place. After making some arrangements, he was about to sit down cross-legged when he suddenly frowned. He turned around. A black shadow wriggled in front of him, rapidly rising up to form the outline of a tall and straight figure. This figure's face was a bit blurry, and it was impossible to see it clearly. But the aura he exuded seemed as if it could tear apart the air. One could immediately determine his identity. Scion Zhao. The phantom cupped his hands together. Fellow Taoist Yao. Qinyu took a deep breath. Scion, did you come here to take revenge for Zhuolanhua? Zhao Qinyuan lightly said, I don't have that kind of friendship with fellow Taoists. He paused for a moment. Today, I wish to join forces with fellow Taoist Yao. Qinyu's expression was leisurely. Scion already has many formidable companions, right? Zhao Qinyuan said, although they aren't weak, their horizons are too high. They overestimate themselves and look down on others. There are definitely more than one intelligent person in this small world. If we can think of something, how could others not? Hunting down the ancient tree monster might not be as smooth as they thought it would be. Fellow Taoist, Yao naturally hopes to obtain some harvests here. If you and I join forces, we will have a higher chance of success. Qinyu said, why should I believe you? Zhao Qinyuan said, fellow Taoist Yao does not need to believe me. With your strength, you can deal with anything. I do not ask fellow Taoist Yao to make a promise. You only need to judge for yourself and attack at the right time. Qinyu was silent for several breaths of time. He nodded. All right, I agree. Zhao Qinyuan cupped his hands together. As I said just now, hunting down the ancient tree monster won't be easy at all. I have a premonition that there will be great waves. Fellow Taoist Yao, please be careful. The figure dissipated and turned into a shadow, quickly merging into the ground and disappearing into the boundless night. Qinyu had a thoughtful look, a sharp light shining in his eyes. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the sage stood up and looked into the distance. There was a bit of shock on his face, as well as a bit of amazement. It is hard to imagine that besides Zhao Qinyuan, there is actually another proud son of heaven in the demonic path. The heavens are so kind to the demonic path, but why are they so cruel to us monster race? The sage shook his head and sighed. His heart was filled with unwillingness and helplessness. AI, how can there be true fairness in this world? Otherwise, how could I have reached my current state? I've worked so hard to arrange everything. Killing Zhao Qinyuan is killing him, so let's count this person in as well and destroy him together. He turned and patted the tree trunk. Lord Monster the Arch, with two proud elites of the demonic path as sacrifices, perhaps you really might be able to complete your reversal of rebirth. I am looking forward to it. Just at this moment, Sage Shao frowned and looked up at the sky. After staring for a few breaths, a faint smile appeared on his face. Have you finally realized something is wrong? But it is already too late. My enemies of the demonic path, please accept this gift that I offer you. Heavenly Demon City. For figures stood side by side, their complexions pale. As they looked at the spinning vortex above their heads, their eyes were filled with rage and a cruel killing intent. An invisible aura swept out in all directions like a tide, stirring up winds and clouds. Cracks would occasionally appear in the skies. Because of the opening of the Demon Ascension Gate, the truth was that 4 Calamity Immortals had gathered in this tiny heavenly demon city. Starting from several days ago, no more demonic path disciples were transmitted out from the small world. At first, this matter didn't arouse much attention. No one knew what was happening in the small world. In addition, for countless years, there had never been any accidents that occurred in the opening of the Demon Ascension Gate, so no one thought too much about it. But as this continued for many days, this matter was finally reported to the higher-ups. By the time the Calamity Immortals investigated and discovered that the small world was sealed inside and outside, far too much time had passed. Just who was it that dared to interfere with the grand event of the demonic path's demon ascension gate? As they thought about how nearly the entire demonic path had gathered in this small world, including all the outstanding disciples of the younger generation, as well as 4 transcendent calamity, immortal realm existences, killing intent rose in their hearts. They wished they could tear apart the world. The small world has closed, and we cannot open it. Immediately request for an almighty being to descend and forcefully open it. Pass down orders, seal off heavenly demon city. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Summon all doctors and prepare to receive them. Deep in the eyes of the 4 calamity immortals, there was a hint of worry. To dare to take such a great risk and interfere with the demonic path's demon ascension gate, they must be plotting something big. Although they didn't know what their goal was, the demonic path disciples in the small world weren't optimistic. The next day, Zwolanyue didn't return. The atmosphere of the group fell silent. Although no one mentioned this topic, everyone felt as if a stone was pressing down on their chests. Yesterday, when it was nearly dark, Zwolanyue had quietly left. Everyone was well aware of what he was doing. When a struggle for the Wonder Stone had stirred up a considerable storm in Heavenly Demon City, anyone who paid attention would know. But now, the result was different for what they expected. There were many possibilities for Zwolanyue to have disappeared without a trace, but the most likely possibility was that he had already died. If Zwolanyue died, what about Yao Bin? It would be best if they perished together, but the chances of this happening were far, far too low. As he thought about how there might be a pair of eyes coldly staring at them in the dark, even someone as cruel and ruthless as Dong Hanju had a gloomy expression on his face. Zhao Qinyuan knew everything, but he wouldn't say anything. He remained as cold and detached as ever as he wandered outside. Sun Zifu lay down on the phoenix carriage. Within the shadow of despair in his heart, a faint bit of hope rose up. He knew that his hopes were unreasonable. The chances were so low that they could be ignored. But at the very least, he didn't need to wait for death to arrive. Moreover, Yao Bin had always been someone who could create miracles. The group continued forwards. In a small world, halfway up a mountain peak, a fierce battle was currently erupting. 3 commander-level demon beasts joined forces to attack, and a group of cultivators were bitterly resisting. There was a speed car in this group. No matter how fierce the attacks of the demon beasts were, they were forcefully pushed back, unable to approach the speed car even half a step. Finally, seeing that they couldn't gain an advantage, the 3 commander-level demon beasts retreated with wounds all over their bodies. The group seemed to have long since experienced this. They began to repair themselves in an orderly manner. The door of the speed car quietly opened, and an incomparably pale and beautiful girl stepped out. Her eyes were beautiful and watery, and no matter who she looked at, it was like she was silently telling them something. "Miss Blue, why did you come down? Your injuries haven't healed yet, so you should have stayed in the car and rested." A man hurried over, his face pale. In the battle just now, he had fought against one of the demon beasts by himself and was the strongest in the group. At least on the surface, he was indeed the strongest. Blue Cloud had a guilty look in her eyes. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't been injured because I was careless, I wouldn't have implicated everyone and they wouldn't have spent so much effort to take care of me." Another cultivator smiled. "Miss Blue, there is no need to be like this. In our group, anyone can leave, but we cannot do so without misguidance." These words caused everyone to nod in agreement. Even the 2 female cultivators didn't have any resentment in their eyes, even though they felt bitter in their hearts. Miss Blue was indeed an indispensable member of the group. If it weren't for her leading the way, how could these people have found the rumored divine tree that hid a transcendent good fortune? That's right, the goal of this group was also the ancient tree monster in this small world. Blue Cloud's smile was pure and pure. "Thank you, everyone. I don't have much to do, so I'll give these pills to everyone. They might be of some help." Everyone's eyes brightened. They expressed their thanks and distributed the pills to each of them. Along the way, they had already eaten a great deal of pills. Although they didn't know what materials were used to refine the pills provided by Blue Cloud, the effects were amazing. Not only could they quickly replenish their lost strength, but they could also speed up the recovery of their injuries. If it weren't for these pills, it would have been impossible for them to arrive here so easily. They would likely have already suffered some losses. As Blue Cloud saw everyone eat the pills, her smile became even brighter. Fellow Taoists, we aren't too far away from the divine tree. If everyone works together, we will definitely succeed. At the same time, at the new campsite, Sun Zifu was conducting a third sensing process. By relying on his bloodline ability, he finally locked onto the position of the ancient tree monster. As everyone was smiling, his heart was filled with bitterness. It wasn't that young Master Sun didn't want to do anything in private, but that Su Guzi wanted to lend him a helping hand. If the two of them joined forces, he wouldn't have a chance, nor would he dare to act recklessly. As he thought, these people no longer gave him any face. Thinking of what this meant, Sun Zifu became increasingly panicked. Su Guzi adjusted his breathing for a moment. Then, he stood up and said, "Everyone, the ancient tree monster isn't too far away from us." The atmosphere of the group suddenly brightened. No matter what thoughts they had in their hearts, hunting down the ancient tree monster and obtaining the demon blood crystal was their ultimate goal. Night arrived. As everyone was preparing to rest, a group of uninvited guests appeared around the campsite. Su Guzi's eyes flashed open, a gloomy expression on his face. Outside the campsite, a speed car quietly came to a stop. Standing at the front of the group, Lung Feng also had an ugly complexion. Although they had chosen the same location as the campsite to show that everyone had similar visions, this wasn't something to be happy about. After ascetically training for several days, they were about to reach the end. Just as they were preparing to rest and prepare to welcome the great battle in their peak condition to seize their unsurpassed lucky chances and good fortune, a group of people suddenly jumped out at them. No one would feel comfortable about this. Both sides faced each other across the campsite's array formation. No one spoke, so the atmosphere was naturally heavy. The car door opened and Blue Cloud stepped out. His eyes swept over everyone in the campsite, and he suddenly said, "Are you also here for the divine tree?" With a single sentence, he had revealed the situation. Su Guzi took a deep breath. He said, "It looks like everyone else has the same thoughts." Dong Hanju's eyes were cruel. "Fuck off or die." There was a limited amount of demon blood crystals. They didn't even have enough to distribute among themselves. So how could they accept the two teams sharing them? Lung Feng's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. "You can try." "Who?" His robes fluttered without wind. Thick demonic energy erupted, condensing into the phantom of a demon beast above his head, releasing an astonishing pressure. Bloodline projection. Su Guzi's pupils shrank. He never thought that the other side would have such a powerhouse. He swept his eyes over the other side. Although there was a bit of dread in their eyes, there wasn't the least bit of fear in them. Moreover, there were several people that seemed ordinary, but in Su Guzi's senses, they were as calm as an unfathomable lake. Dong Hanju diabolically grinned. Just as he was about to step forwards, he was stopped by someone. He furrowed his eyebrows, a cruel light tumbling in his eyes, but he didn't erupt. The only one that could cause the Dong family to forcefully restrain themselves was the number one powerhouse of the demonic path's younger generation, Zhao Qinyuan. His expression was calm, and his eyes were indifferent. There was a dignified look in them. These people aren't easy to deal with. If we really fight, I fear both sides will be wounded. Indeed, his judgment was correct. This small world had gathered all the powerhouses of the demonic path's younger generation. Hidden dragons and crouching tigers weren't enough to describe this place. Before, there was Yao Bin, and now. Zhao Qinyuan's eyes fell on the other side of the crowd, on the beautiful woman with a pure aura. Her head was slightly lowered, and her temperament was delicate. But in his senses, she was like a dormant volcano. No one dared to ignore Sion Zhao's words. Dong Hanju frowned. The chill around him slowly faded away. He wasn't an idiot. Su Guzi's eyes flashed. He suddenly said, "Since our goals are the same, then let's not interfere with each other's business. Everyone will rely on their own abilities." Lung Feng shouted out, "Good." He lifted a hand. "Let's go." Chapter 507. A dispute had been resolved, but it was hard for everyone to relax. The missing Yao Bin had already caused them to feel uneasy, and now there was another group of tyrannical opponents. Su Guzi sucked in a deep breath. Looking at it from another angle, before we successfully hunt down the ancient tree monster, these people can be considered our potential helpers. As for the struggle afterwards, his eyes darkened. "Do you think we should be afraid of them?" Zhou Fenghuang's eyes subconsciously fell on Zhao Qianyuan. She relaxed a little. She immediately thought that her performance was far too shameful. Just as she was about to cover it up, she discovered that the expressions of those around her weren't much different. It seemed that everyone had taken Zhao Qianyuan as their greatest backer. Inexplicably, Zhou Fenghuang thought of the currently missing Yao Bin. He had casually helped Sun Zifu block the white light from the seven-eyed demon spider's seventh eye, and he had even managed to keep Zhuolangyue here. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was unfathomably deep. Perhaps he might be able to compete with Zhao Qianyuan. As soon as this thought appeared, Zhou Fenghuang was frightened. She secretly mocked herself for thinking too much. Yao Bin might be hiding his strength, but he was already old, so how could he compare with Zhao Qianyuan? Moreover, Scion Zhao had already touched upon the world's rules and was just a step away from the calamity immortal realm. With a dragon spear in hand, he could be called invincible beneath the calamity immortal realm. No matter how strong Yao Bin was, how strong could he be? Another team that had locked onto the ancient tree monster set up camp 100 miles away. Everyone was busy, worry in their eyes. Lung Feng walked in front of the speed car, a look of hesitation on his face. But before he could speak, the door had already opened. Blue Cloud lowered her head as she stepped out. She brushed back her hair and said in a soft voice, "Fellow Taoist Lung, do you resent me for not directly pointing out everything?" Lung Feng waved his hand. "I have no such intentions. It's just that this group of people are too strong. If we rashly stand on the opposite side, it will be disadvantageous to us." "Fellow Taoist Lung, your words are wrong." Another cultivator walked over, his voice attracting everyone's attention. "In today's situation, do you think that if we don't say anything, they will believe that we just happened to arrive?" Miss Blue Cloud directly pointed it out. "This is a tough attitude. Although these people aren't ordinary, if they really fight with us, both sides will be wounded. Since that's the case, what's wrong with being forceful?" Blue Cloud bowed. "Thank you, fellow Taoist Han, for explaining this to me." Blue Cloud indeed thinks so. She looked up. "Everyone, you and I have come all the way here. Do we really intend to give up halfway?" Lung Feng's face darkened. "Han Cheng, it's not that I'm dissatisfied. Miss Qing, please don't think too much. I'm just a little worried." These words made everyone secretly nod their heads. Who wouldn't be worried? Although they had only met face to face, the people in the group were simply too famous. For instance, that fiendish Dong Hanju, or the incomparably intelligent and calculating Su Guzi. Those with great reputations had to have a reason for it. Competing with such people wasn't easy at all. Qing Yun softly said, "I understand what fellow Taoist Lung is thinking. It's natural for everyone to be worried, but we're not willing to retreat, so we can only fight with them." Her eyes flashed. "We might still have a chance of winning. Young Miss Qing is right. It's only because our backgrounds are inferior that we don't have their prestige. If we were to really fight them, we might not necessarily be weaker than them. The fortune of the divine tree is an opportunity for us to change our lives. If we succeed, our future achievements will be limitless. With good fortune before us, the brave can seize it. I will never give up." The crowd was stirred up. Qing Yun spoke a few more words with the others. Then, she revealed a tired expression and returned to the speed car to rest. After arranging the guards, everyone began to adjust their breathing. Su Guzi and Dong Hanju quietly appeared outside the camp. As they swept their eyes over the quiet camp, they relaxed a little. It seemed that the other side didn't have any intention of secretly attacking them. Although this was within reason, it was only after confirming this point that they could rest in peace tonight. Fellow Taoist Dong, let's go back to avoid any misunderstandings. After a sound transmission, the two nodded and were about to leave. Suddenly, a heaven-shaking explosion sounded out from behind them. Flames soared into the heavens, illuminating their faces. They saw that the peacefully parked speed car in the center of the camp had already been smashed to pieces, swallowed up by the flames. In that instant, the sounds of people boiled over. Lung Feng's face was filled with anger and pain. He rushed into the sea of flames, but all he found were several pieces of clothing and broken bones. As he thought about the woman who had been speaking to him warmly and patiently explaining things to him not too long ago, she had now died without a complete corpse. Anger flooded his mind, and his eyes turned red. Suddenly, Lung Feng looked up. His ice-cold and cruel eyes locked onto the two faces outside the camp that were illuminated by the flames. "It's you," he roared like a wounded beast. Besides Su Guzi, who was skilled in array formations, who else could quietly pass through the camp and kill Qingyan? They were the ones who killed Qingyan. Damn it, all of them should die. Bang, the ground collapsed. Lung Feng shot into the skies like a vicious beast as he rushed forwards. Su Guzi's complexion changed. Now that they had appeared here, if he said that this matter had nothing to do with them, these people definitely wouldn't believe him. This was really like yellow mud falling on one's pants. Even if it wasn't something, it was still something. It had always been him who schemed against others, but today he was actually being used by others. His face flushed red with anger and shame. "Run!" With a deep roar, Su Guzi's figure flashed, and he retreated like a bolt of lightning. Dong Hanju followed close behind. Although he was arrogant, he didn't have the arrogance to challenge these people. If he didn't leave now, he feared he would be surrounded and beaten to death by these enraged cultivators. Han Sheng angrily roared, "Kill them all, and take revenge for the miss." He hadn't even displayed his true strength to capture the beauty yet, so how could she die? At this moment, raging anger gushed out from the depths of his heart, sweeping through his entire body. He wished he could destroy the entire world. "Kill them all! Kill!" Su Guzi clenched his teeth and fled. He was well aware that no matter how much he said, it was impossible for him to explain himself. Moreover, if the two of them ran away, that would be the same as admitting to the matter. Whoosh! With the sound of breaking air, a dazzling white light appeared, falling in front of the two. Zhao Qinyuan grasped his dragon spear, his bearing graceful. He frowned. What happened? Su Guzi hurriedly said, "When we went over to investigate, their speed car suddenly exploded, killing the woman inside. Those people are already rushing over." But at this time, Lung Feng's fist came crashing down. "You will all die." Zhao Qinyuan lifted his hand. The dragon spear thrust out like a bolt of lightning. With this spear, it seemed as if even the heavens and earth could be easily pierced through. Killing intent rushed into Lung Feng's mind. He shivered. His fist turned into a palm, and he thrust it forwards. The palm collided with the spear shaft. A vast strength surged outwards, and Lung Feng was sent flying away like a boulder. Blood gushed out from his nose and mouth. Lung Feng stumbled to the ground. He stared at the dragon spear and cried out, "Scion Zhao." As Han Sheng and the other cultivators rushed over, they happened to hear these words. Their complexions immediately changed. A man's fame was like a tree's shadow. The #1 demonic path noble family's Kirin's son, Zhao Qinyuan, had shocked the world with a single brilliant feat 20 years later, soaring into the skies and transforming into a heavenly dragon. With a dragon spear in hand, he had once killed 6 peak blue sea martial artists, his strength shocking the heavens and earth. No one imagined that the callous and reserved youth they saw at sunset was actually the #1 junior of the demonic path. How could they fight? If they really did fight, all of them would be buried here. Zhao Qinyuan slowly said, I don't know what happened, but fellow Dao Su and Dong only went to investigate the situation and ensure that both sides were safe. They wouldn't secretly kill each other. There must be some hidden story behind this. Lung Feng clenched his teeth. Hidden story? Miss Blue has already died. Scion Zhao, please tell me, what hidden story is behind this? His eyes swept over everyone. I am indeed not a match for Scion Zhao, but I will not let this matter rest like this. He turned and left. Han Sheng took a deep breath. With a wave of his hand, he led everyone away. A cold light flashed in the depths of Zhao Qinyuan's eyes. From his humble beginnings to where he was today, his hands were already stained with blood. It wasn't that he was cruel and merciless, but that if he didn't kill, he would be killed. Thus, he didn't mind leaving those people behind. But after hesitating again and again, he didn't do anything. This was because there was something very wrong with this matter. Zhao Qinyuan could clearly see that although that Miss Blue seemed delicate and weak, she was actually incomparably strong. How could such a character be so easily schemed to death? Su Guzi relaxed. He cupped his hands together. Luckily, Scion Zhao appeared. Otherwise, a great battle would have been inevitable today. Zhao Qinyuan gathered his thoughts. Let's leave this place first. The three of them quickly left. They ran into a group of people waiting for them. After a few simple words, they hurried away with gloomy expressions. Someone dying on the other side should have been a good thing, but now that someone had died, it wasn't so wonderful. Both sides were enemies to begin with. Now that someone had died, there was no need to mention the hostility between them. And what was most terrifying was that Su Guzi and Dong Hanju hadn't done anything, yet someone had died on the other side. Could it be that there was another group of people hiding in the dark, provoking the two sides to kill each other and watching from the sidelines as a fisherman reaped the benefits wasn't a profound strategy? Everyone could think of it. Both sides left, and the night returned to tranquility. Suddenly, the darkness parted like water, and an incomparably beautiful girl in a white dress stepped out. In the darkness, she was like a blooming white lotus, pure and dazzling. This girl was Blue Cloud, who should have been buried in that explosion not too long ago. But she was actually standing here safe and sound. Her beautiful face was originally gentle and meek, but now it had turned into a faint alienation. Between her eyebrows, there was an indifference that pushed people away 1,000 miles. She looked up in the direction that Zhao Qinyuan and the others left in. Blue Cloud's lips curled up in a smile. It was like 100 flowers had bloomed, illuminating the dark night. Have you already begun to doubt me? You are truly worthy of being the illustrious #1 person of the demonic path. What a pity, from the moment you stepped into this small world, you were doomed to perish here. The next time we meet, that will be the time your body perishes and your soul returns to the netherworld. So, please enjoy the rest of your life. Her white dress turned and the darkness parted once more, submerging her figure. But after several breaths of time, Blue Cloud broke through the darkness once more. Her icy cold eyes swept around, but she didn't find anything strange. Was I imagining things? Perhaps I was too nervous. She turned and left. After several more breaths of time, there was the sound of light footsteps. Qin Yu stood beneath a large tree and said in a soft voice, "This play is becoming more and more wonderful." Chapter 508. Everyone thought they were smart, and everything was under their control. But the truth was that they were nothing more than a clown on stage in the eyes of others. This was not a lecture, but the simplest truth. They had finally arrived at the ancient tree monster. Even though they had a certain degree of understanding towards this remnant body left behind by the monster race great emperor, they still felt their minds shake as they saw it truly support the heavens. Before, it was said that this small world was built with the ancient tree monster as its foundation. Now, they realized that these words were true. Then, they instinctively groaned. How could there be such a large tree in this world? Big, it was really big, so big that it covered the sky, and covered the sun. It was so big that as far as one's eyes could see, apart from it, there was nothing else. Su Guzi sucked in a deep breath. Everyone, the time to decide our fate has arrived. Whether we overcome this difficulty and obtain a limitless good fortune, or whether we will be buried here, everything will depend on this moment. With a loud shout, the robe on his body suddenly lit up. Countless runes fluttered and flew up, wrapping around his body layer by layer. Whoosh! With the sound of breaking air, Su Guzi took the lead. Dong Hanju's eyes were cruel and ruthless. Then let's fight. Bang! The earth collapsed. Dong Hanju was like a fierce tiger descending a mountain, his momentum terrifying. Li Mingxian had an excited expression. He lifted a hand, and the 100-sword boat howled forwards. He pulled on Mu Qingwan. Let's go. Zhou Fenghuang silently followed behind. Zhao Qianyuan turned around. He glanced behind him, his eyes dark and gloomy. It was unknown what thoughts were swirling in his mind. Soon, he looked away. The dragon spear in his hand vibrated, and he stepped forwards like a dragon. At the end of his line of sight, the ancient tree monster that supported the heavens and earth began to gently tremble, as if its branches were being swept up by a strong wind. Then, the countless large and small trees that were attached to it began to wriggle out from the ground. Clear human faces appeared on the tree trunks as they howled and rushed forwards. As some trees ran forwards, several or even dozens of them gathered together. Their roots were as flexible as rubber, and in the blink of an eye, they formed a tall and fierce treant, its roars shaking the heavens and earth. Monster Tree Phantom Soldiers, Monster Tree Phantom Generals. Su Guzi lifted a hand and thrust out. Tens of millions of runes howled out, condensing into a giant sword that cut down from above. A demon tree puppet soldier on the opposite side let out a blood-curdling screech. It was split into two from head to toe, its tree trunk falling to the ground, but it did not die. The wound quickly healed, and in the blink of an eye, it split into two smaller demon tree puppet soldiers. The ancient tree monster was rooted in this small world, and its vitality was extremely rich. These monster tree puppet soldiers were born by relying on it. As long as the ancient tree monster didn't lose its vitality, they would never be killed. They could be called immortal bodies. This was the most terrifying aspect of the ancient tree monster. Su Guzi's pupil shrank. He lifted a hand and pointed forward. Countless runes howled out, breaking into the bodies of the two smaller monster tree puppet soldiers. Their bodies suddenly stiffened, and then, as if they had been weathered for countless years, they turned into powder and scattered down. It was impossible for them to come back to life this time. But Su Guzi's complexion wasn't relaxed at all. In order to kill a demon tree puppet soldier, he had to use absolute strength to instantly annihilate all of its vitality, not giving it a chance to revive. But this method was far too costly. Su Guzi looked up at the dense wave of monster tree puppet soldiers, as well as the monster tree phantom generals mixed within. His complexion darkened. Zhou Fenghuang waved her hand, and Dark Phoenix, True Fire, fell down. After touching the demon tree puppet soldier, it would continue to burn until it was reduced to ashes. Mu Qingwan's blue flames had a similar attribute to hers. Thus, although the two of them weren't the strongest, their killing output was still considerable. Of course, the strongest was still Zhao Qianyuan. Even though he hadn't used his true abilities, as long as the dragon's spear stabbed into them, their vitality would still be severed. There were no demon tree puppet soldiers that could withstand a single round of attacks from him. As long as they were stabbed by the dragon's spear, their vitality would be instantly annihilated by the slaughter power. His terrifying slaughter caused a vast expanse of emptiness to appear around him. This attracted the attention of a demon tree puppet general. It roared and stabbed out with its wooden spear. At the same time, the ground rumbled and roared. A massive number of tree roots broke out from the earth, their speed astonishing as they swept toward Zhao Qianyuan. Moreover, the demon tree puppet general's strength far surpassed that of a demon tree puppet soldier. Even its roars had the ability to attack the soul. Strictly speaking, this was a three-pronged attack. Zhao Qinyuan's complexion didn't change. The dragon spear in his hands thrust out, colliding with a wooden spear. At the same time, he stepped forwards. The moment he landed, a great wave erupted, sweeping in all directions. All of the tree roots fell into the range of the great wave. They stiffened and then disintegrated into powder. At the same time, there was a pain howl. The demon tree puppet general's wooden spear had already shattered into pieces. Moreover, this shattering spread upwards along the dragon spear. The demon tree puppet general roared in alarm and anger as it rapidly disintegrated into 11 separate demon tree puppet soldiers. But in just several breaths of time, that terrifying shattering mark appeared on their bodies. Finally, all 11 demon tree puppet soldiers died. In other words, even the powerful demon tree puppet general had been killed in a single strike by Zhao Qinyuan. Beneath the ancient tree monster, in a place where no one could see, the sage revealed a look of appreciation. Zhao Qinyuan is truly worthy of being called a peerless powerhouse that appears once every 100,000 years. He is truly worthy of praise. What a pity. After Zhao Qinyuan killed the demon tree puppet general, everyone's spirits rose. But at this time, there was an angry roar behind them. Countless tree roots drilled out from the ground, forcing out a group of hidden cultivators. Lung Feng's complexion paled. He lifted a hand and punched out. A wild strength blotted out the skies, crushing a demon tree puppet soldier to pieces. Han Sheng's index finger flickered and red threads appeared. He was like a human-shaped spider weaving a giant web. Wherever the web passed, a demon tree puppet soldier would freeze in place. After several breaths of time, it would fall to the ground, its body broken into countless pieces. Su Guzi turned around, a gloomy expression on his face. These people really were behind us. Luckily, they had been forced out by the ancient tree monster's indiscriminate attacks. If they had continued to hide behind them, they feared they would have suffered a great loss. After last night, although both sides hadn't fought on the spot, they had completely torn apart all pretense of cordiality. There was no longer any room for reconciliation. If there was a chance, these people would attack from behind. But now, the demon tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals were already difficult to deal with. They simply didn't have the strength to spare to deal with them. If they weren't careful, both sides would suffer heavy losses. Perhaps today, they would all die here. Ignore them. Before we kill the ancient tree monster, they won't dare to move. Zhao Qinyuan said in a low voice. He thrust out his dragon spear and sent a demon tree puppet soldier flying away. Sion Li is right. The most important thing for us now is to kill the ancient tree monster. These people came just in time. They can help us share some of the pressure. Everyone be a bit more careful. There shouldn't be any problems if we stay far away from these people. Several people began to speak up. Han Sheng let out a light breath. He lowered his voice. Luckily, these people don't want to provoke us right now. After we kill the ancient tree monster, that will be the time to fight over it. His complexion was a bit depressed. With the help of a treasure, they had hidden themselves well and hadn't been discovered. But who would have imagined that the ancient tree monster would force them to reveal themselves, ruining their great plan of reaping the benefits of others? If they had known this would happen, they would have hidden far away. That would have been better than this. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The group of people paled. They could only grit their teeth and recklessly kill the demon tree puppets that rushed at them. In the eyes of these puppets, they were no different from the group of people in front of them. They were all invaders that had to die. As Han Sheng saw that no one panicked, he relaxed a little. Although they had lost the chance to watch the battle, as long as they persisted until the end, it wouldn't be difficult for them to obtain a share of the spoils with their strength. So what if it was Zhao Qinyuan? With their lucky chance and good fortune in front of them, this was the turning point that would change their destiny in the future. If anyone dared to stop them, they would welcome an undying and crazed counterattack. Bang! With a loud explosion, a terrifying strength erupted. A demon tree puppet soldier was sent flying away, disintegrating in midair. Han Sheng frowned. Fellow Taoist Lung. The two of them had already secretly reached an agreement to join forces, so they couldn't watch him waste his strength. Didn't he discover that everyone was still holding back? Humph humph. The time to truly go all out hadn't arrived yet. Lung Feng paused. He took a deep breath and nodded. I'm fine. Although he said this, he still felt that there was something wrong with his current state. There was a boiling heat in his chest, like a raging inferno. It caused his heartbeat to accelerate, and a desire to destroy was born within him. He wanted to suppress it, but he discovered that the more he did so, the more he couldn't control it. He wanted to let go of all restraints and crazily slaughter his way through. Calm down. Calm down. I can't lose too many people right now. I still need to compete for the demon blood crystals, so how can I let others take advantage of me? Lung Feng roared out in his heart, but the effects weren't good. His vision began to blur, and his vision began to turn red. Whoosh! The sound of breaking air approached. Lung Feng suddenly discovered that his senses had become incomparably sharp. This was a sneak attack from a demon tree puppet soldier. Lung Feng diabolically grinned. He couldn't control his body at all. Without dodging at all, he lifted a hand and punched out. When his fist collided with the tree trunk, his body suddenly trembled while the flesh and blood on his fist ruptured, but he didn't feel the slightest bit of pain. Instead, he felt a satisfying feeling of pain and pleasure. Stamping on the ground, his body shot out explosively, smashing apart the branches that were crazily swatting down. A heavy fist landed on the demon tree puppet soldier's body, smashing it to pieces. As his figure landed on the ground, Lung Feng subconsciously licked the corner of his mouth. A few drops of blood flowed out from the wound on his forehead, and he actually felt that it was exceptionally delicious. His eyes turned even redder. Ah, kill, kill, kill. If you block me, you'll die. A roar rang out from behind him. Lung Feng subconsciously turned his head and saw that the people in his team had all gone crazy. They tossed aside all misgivings and erupted with their greatest strength. They charged out without fear of death, slaughtering countless people wherever they passed. Lung Feng laughed, his voice strange and sharp. Let's kill together. Bang! Billowing demonic chi erupted, condensing into the phantom of a demonic beast above his head. In the next moment, this phantom directly merged into his body. A layer of black scales instantly appeared on the surface of Lung Feng's body, together with a pair of blood-red eyes. He was like a demon descending from the abyss. Bang, bang! In the blink of an eye, two demon tree puppets were smashed to pieces. Han Sheng's body shivered. He struggled to keep his mind from falling, but all sorts of negative emotions, such as cruelty, slaughter, destruction, and so on, gushed out from his heart. Looking around at his crazed companions, his eyes turned red with fear. No, we've been schemed against. Just where did we go wrong? He struggled to keep his mind from falling. But as he struggled, a severed arm flew past him. Blood splashed onto his face and fell onto the corner of his lips. Instinctively, Han Sheng licked his lips. A warm current instantly rushed into his brain. With a loud bang, the world in front of him turned blood red. Chapter 509. Zhao Qinyuan's dragon spear was like a bolt of lightning, killing a monster tree puppet soldier. He turned to look at the crazed crowd, his complexion dignified. Demonic chi invading the spirit. The demonic energy in the small world was abundant, but cultivators could not directly absorb and refine it. Otherwise, their minds would be eroded, and they would eventually become demonic creatures that only knew how to kill. But everyone knew this. As long as one had the qualifications to enter the Demon Ascension Gate, they would receive a warning in advance. So, why would this group of people collectively fall into the demonic path? As Zhao Qinyuan furrowed his eyebrows in thought, Su Guzi fell down like a falling leaf. Scion Zhao, these people have been bewitched. There was some surprise on his face, but even more excitement. Those who had been possessed by the devil had lost their minds, so they could be the scapegoats for the others and open up a path for them. Whoosh whoosh Dong Hanju, Zhou Feng Wang, Li Mingxian, and Mu Qingwan all flew back. Sun Zifu, who had been under everyone's protection, naturally ran faster than anyone else. They were all smart people and could naturally see the current situation clearly. With these people who were possessed, there was no need for them to risk their lives. Preserving their strength to deal with the unexpected was the best choice. Zhao Qinyuan always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out just what exactly was wrong. He pondered for a moment and said, "Let's retreat a little and be on high alert." Seeing Heir Zhao's serious expression, everyone's hearts trembled. They nodded their heads, not daring to be careless. With Lung Feng and Han Cheng in the lead, the group of cultivators who had fallen to the demonic Dao erupted with shocking power. One of the unremarkable female cultivators had actually awakened a demonic bloodline, and it was an extremely rare cursed bloodline. Dark gray mist lingered around her body, and any demon tree puppet soldiers that came into contact with it would immediately wither and die. Her power was extremely terrifying. Even someone as cruel and ruthless as Dong Hanju couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. If it weren't for these people falling into the demonic path, a great battle would have been inevitable. Besides Zhao Qinyuan, none of them would have been able to obtain much of an advantage. Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the others burst forth with extremely powerful destructive power. After falling into the demonic Dao, their minds fell, and they were controlled by a berserk killing intent. They did not know how to preserve their strength. Su Guzi used the power of the enchantment to carefully guide them forward. The monster tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals that came crashing down like a massive wave died on the ground. A channel was forcefully torn open, leading straight towards the desolate tree monster tree. Qin Yu's eyes were closed, and there was no expression on his face. With the help of the cosmic sea cross bell, he could clearly sense the changes occurring in the battlefield. When Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the others succumbed to the demonic path, he opened his eyes and looked to the left, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Indeed, a true person couldn't be judged by their appearance. Beneath her pure and white lotus-like appearance was an extremely vicious heart. If he had a chance, he wouldn't mind destroying this flower and personally sending her to hell. As for whether these people collectively falling into the demonic path had anything to do with Qin Yun, this kind of matter that was placed on the table, there was really no need to consider it. Suddenly, Qin Yu's complexion changed. At the same time, within his soul space, the cosmic sea cross bell began to ring out, rapid and sharp. Qin Yu, quickly leave, quickly leave. Little Mei screamed with all her might, her face filled with terror. Zhao Qinyuan paused for a moment. He looked up, his eyes like lightning as he stubbornly stared at the distant ancient tree monster. A blue light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the space in front of him distorted slightly, and the scenery changed drastically. He could see that in the crown of the ancient tree monster, countless branches had gathered together, forming something similar to an embryo. Dong, dong. Some invisible rhythmic beating spread out, like countless thunderclaps roaring out, piercing straight into the depths of his soul. Zhao Qinyuan's pupils shrank. Rebirth. A deep roar instantly spread into everyone's ears. As they saw his appearance, as if he were facing a great enemy, their complexions changed. Su Guzi hurriedly asked, "Scion Zhao, what did you discover?" Zhao Qinyuan was about to speak when he stuffily coughed, and blood flowed out from the corners of his lips. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the sage revealed a look of surprise. "I never thought that I would be able to discover this secret from so far away." He shook his head. "It looks like I can only activate it ahead of time. Although it isn't perfect, it should be enough." He looked up at the ancient tree monster that supported the heavens and began to chant in a low voice. The ancient and boundless syllables revolved around the inconceivably thick tree trunk, constantly shaking. Thus, the entire ancient tree monster began to shake. Then, The entire small world began to tremble. Rumble, rumble. Above their heads, the skies changed colors. Countless black clouds drilled out, weaving together into a black curtain that blocked out the skies. Blood-red thunder instantly arrived. It roared and howled, drawing out fierce faces like those of demons. The sage stopped chanting, his eyes blazing with fervor. "Return, slumbering great emperor of my race." His voice was drowned out by the roars of thunder. But it had truly awakened the slumbering will of the ancient tree monster. In the crown of the tree, within the giant embryo formed from countless branches, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. Chinyu stiffened. His soul instinctively screamed out. He didn't doubt that the awakened big fellow could crush him to pieces with a single finger. Without a doubt, running away now was the best choice. The further he ran, the better. But Chinyu didn't dare to move. This was because he could sense that as the big fellow awoke, some changes had occurred in this part of the world. If he really ran away, he feared he would have to withstand a heaven-shaking strike in the next moment. Chinyu didn't have full confidence he could block it. Sweat poured down, soaking his black robes. At this moment, Chinyu couldn't help but feel regret. But it was only for a moment before he suppressed it, because at this point, it was useless to regret anything. He couldn't run. At least, he couldn't be the first to run. Luckily, there were still many people in front of him. These people might not be able to kill the big fellow, but they could still distract its attention and divert its strength. At that time, Chinyu would have a chance. As for Zhao Qinyuan, I'm sorry, what number one of the demonic path? What super powerhouse of the younger generation? I'm not familiar with him at all. Although there was an agreement, it was only an agreement and nothing was promised. Thus, Chinyu didn't feel any psychological burden at all. The only thing he wanted was to preserve his own life. Zhao Qinyuan took a deep breath. His voice was a bit hoarse. "Everyone, you and I are in deep trouble." There was no need for him to waste any more words explaining. Everyone was left dumbfounded by what happened next. They saw the space in front of them distort and scatter. It was like a painting being peeled off, revealing the true scene of the world. The ancient tree monster stood between the heavens and earth. Branches wove together in the crown of the tree, forming an embryo. As it contracted and expanded, a heartbeat sounded out from this embryo, becoming louder and louder and stronger. Su Guzi finally understood what Zhao Qinyuan meant by rebirth. His face paled and fear filled his eyes. In the land of death, to walk towards life, to reverse yin and yang, to rewrite the will of heaven, this was rebirth. After everyone heard this, their bodies stiffened. Their faces were drained of all color. In the ancient legends, there were almighty beings in the world. After they perished, their bodies and souls scattered, but they didn't perish. After experiencing endless years, they condensed their souls from nothingness, broke through the isolation of yin and yang, and descended upon the world once more. What Su Guzi said was a general description of this process. But the reason that legends were called legends was because they could only hear the sound and not see the reality. For countless years, no one had ever heard of a dead, almighty being able to return from the dead. But now, they seemed to be witnessing a historic scene. Witnessing history was supposed to be an exciting thing. At this moment, everyone shivered. But this had nothing to do with excitement, but endless fear. The ancient tree monster had come back to life. To be more accurate, the monster race great emperor that had been hunted down by a demonic path almighty being in the past and used his ruined body to create a small world had returned from the dead. How could they even play? What bullshit hunt? What bullshit distribution of demon blood crystals? What bullshit opportunity to change one's destiny? This was clearly seeking death on his own initiative. Although this situation was completely self-inflicted, everyone still couldn't help but curse out Su Guzi's 88 generations of ancestors. All of them were women. "You damn thing. If you want to die, then go die. Why did you activate the Watchstone and drag us down with you?" Zhao Qinyuan was certain that for some unknown reason, he had been targeted. This wasn't intuition, but a clear judgment. The rules of the world had changed, forming an invisible cage around him. Simply put, there was nowhere he could run. But his expression remained calm. It wasn't that he wasn't panicking, but that he couldn't panic. Otherwise, all of these people that were closely surrounding him would run away in the blink of an eye. Zhao Qinyuan took a deep breath and said, "The situation is indeed terrifying, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the slightest chance of survival." He lifted a finger. "Between life and death, there is a great tribulation. You must know that breaking through the barrier of yin and yang is not a simple matter. Even if the monster race, Great Emperor, returns, he will still be in his weakest state. Although his aura is terrifying, his true strength might not be any stronger than when he was in his ruined state. Now that we are panicking, you and I will die without a doubt. But if we join forces to fight, it is unknown just who will be the final victor." Su Guzi's eyes brightened. "That's right. I suddenly thought of something. I once saw a similar record in some ancient text. To break through yin and yang, one must pay a great price. Perhaps the current ancient tree monster is even weaker than before." He swept his eyes over the massive number of monster tree puppet soldiers and puppet generals. "They are proof. If they were strong enough, why would they have these puppets frantically block us?" Everyone's spirits rose as they heard this. Dong Hanju licked his lips. "Whether they are strong or weak, I will not resign myself to death. Let's see just who lives and who dies today." Li Mingxian roared, "Let's go all out." Zhou Fenghuang said, "Now is not the time for us to go all out. There are still people ahead of us." Shua. Everyone's eyes fell on Lung Feng, Han Sheng, and the others. But accidents always occurred so suddenly. Atop the ancient tree monster, there was a sudden roar from the embryo. Vast and boundless, an invisible pressure instantly swept through the world. Their eyes were blood red. Their minds were corroded by killing intent, and they had completely lost all reasoning. The demonized cultivators that only knew how to kill and destroy suddenly stopped. They turned around, their blood-red eyes locking onto the crowd. Deep in their throats, they emitted roars like wild beasts. Layers of black scales appeared on the surface of their bodies. In the blink of an eye, these people had completely demonized. Bang, bang, the ground shattered. Demonic people crazily rushed forwards. At the same time, the monster tree, puppet soldiers, and puppet generals that were crazily surrounding them gave up on trying to stop these people. With loud rumbling sounds, they rushed towards the crowd. In an instant, the situation changed. Just as the people were waiting for the demonized cultivators to test out their firepower, they didn't even have time to curse out loud before they were submerged in a terrifying barrage of attacks. No one dared to hold back. From the very start, the slaughter entered a white-hot state. Magic power fluctuations surged out like tsunamis, tearing apart the earth and shaking the heavens. Qinyu slowly let out a breath. He believed that the time he had been waiting for had arrived. He took a step backwards, and boundless strength rose up from his spine, howling downwards. In just 1/100th of a breath of time, his figure would shoot into the skies. But in the blink of an eye, Qin Yu's complexion changed. The speed at which he stepped forwards increased, but he also changed the direction of his strength. A wild strength rushed deep into the earth. The ground instantly exploded. Countless tree roots broke out from the earth. They were a strange crimson color. As they fell into the raging tide of strength, they only paused for a brief moment before rushing forwards once more. Luckily, this bit of time was enough for Qin Yu to escape. But his complexion still paled because he knew that he no longer had a chance to escape. As he thought, the earth exploded again and again. Crimson tree roots shot up into the skies like great waves crashing down, forcing Qin Yu towards the ancient tree monster. His thoughts raced. He discovered that he didn't have full confidence he could tear through the waves of tree roots. He could only sigh and rapidly retreat. A white dress, pure and beautiful like a lotus. Blue Cloud stood atop the ancient tree, looking at the distant battle. There was a faint smile on his indifferent face. He had finally waited for this day. Lord Sage, I have already fulfilled my promise. I hope that you do not disappoint me. Otherwise, I will be very unhappy. He lifted a hand, and a blue flower appeared. Blue Cloud pressed it between his eyebrows. This blue flower fused into his flesh and blood. A halo of light flowed on its surface, making it look lifelike. Beneath the ancient tree monster, the sage had a gratified expression. You are the one that I have chosen. As the next guardian of my race, I will naturally do my best to help you. But as for whether or not you can obtain this good fortune, that will all depend on your own luck. He turned and took a step forwards. His entire body fused into the ancient tree monster. In the crown of the tree, within the embryo of the branches, the one who opened his eyes was a naked, extremely handsome young man. As if he was being supported by an invisible force, he floated in midair. There was something that looked like an umbilical cord. It was made up of countless thin threads that grew from branches, and the end of it was connected to the upper end of his spine, slightly below his neck. He was the mortal body that the monster race great emperor had formed by breaking through yin and yang and using the vitality of the ancient tree monster. Now, the young man's eyes flashed with ridicule before he immediately composed himself. He had already left for far, far too long. So long that everyone had forgotten just how majestic he was. To be able to return from the brink of death was enough to prove just how strong he was. And someone as strong as him, how could he possibly be injured by ants? The current juniors of his race were far too naive. Then, once he returned, he would carry out a thorough purge. The corners of his lips curled up in a light smile. But there was no warmth at all. Only an icy, cold, bloodthirsty aura. You schemed against me. We both had black hearts. Chapter 5:10. Sun Zifu's face was deathly pale, and he rolled to the side to avoid it. His head hit something, and with a buzzing sound, his vision turned black. When he finally regained his composure and regained his focus, he saw a monster tree puppet soldier howling as it rushed towards him. Help! Save me! Unfortunately, at this moment, everyone was in a bitter battle and had no time to pay attention to him. Moreover, there was no longer a need to deal with the backlash of the monster race bloodline. Young Master Sun was useless, so who would care about him? Whoosh, whoosh! A large number of branches whizzed down, enough to crush a small mountain. If nothing unexpected happened, young Master Sun would be turned into a pile of minced meat in the next instant. My life is over. Suddenly, Sun Zifu felt a great force. He felt his but instantly split into 18 pieces. His entire body was sent flying, barely dodging the falling branches. Tears instantly flowed down her face. Of course, it was because of the pain. However, she quickly realized that she had saved her life. Thus, tears of joy came from the narrow escape from death. In particular, when Sun Zifu saw the person who had saved him, his tears flowed even more freely. Brother Sun Bin, I knew that you were a good person and would not abandon me. Qin Yu's face was gloomy. He punched the monster tree puppet soldier to pieces and borrowed the momentum to fall back to the ground. He didn't know that he had been given a good guy card. Brother Yao, young Master Sun's eyes were brimming with tears. Don't say anything else. I'll remember your kindness in my heart. Qin Yu reached out a hand and pulled him up. If you have a chance later, run away. Junior Master Sun was startled. In this sort of situation, how could he possibly have a chance to escape? But Brother Yao Bin's words warmed his heart. He nodded vigorously, thinking that if he didn't die this time, he would chop off the chicken's head and drink the blood wine. He would count out a Brother Yao Bin and become sworn brothers. Qin Yu didn't know what Zhao Qinyuan was thinking. His complexion became increasingly ugly. Although the current situation was a mess, he could clearly see that whether it was the demonized cultivators or the monster tree puppets, the ones who were truly fighting against them were him and Zhao Qinyuan. To put it simply, everyone, including Sun Zifu, was caught in the crossfire and suffered along the way. He looked up, his eyes meeting Zhao Qinyuan's in the distance. With just a glance, he knew that this chosen pride of heaven had also discovered the current situation. Hunting, hunting, and in the end, he became the chosen target. Qin Yu couldn't help but curse inwardly. People were finally starting to die. Li Mingxian activated the 100-sword boat, causing its power to erupt to the extreme. Its size shrunk to a third of the size of a normal flying sword, and its whistling sword intent soared into the sky. Its baleful aura was so dense that it condensed into a black mist. Kill! With a roar, the 100 Swords boat pierced through space. The body of a demonic cultivator on the other side stiffened. In the next moment, it exploded into pieces, and all the flesh and blood were minced into a bloody mist by the terrifying sword light. However, just as he killed someone with a single sword strike, his strength was severely depleted, and it was difficult for him to replenish it in a short period of time. Suddenly, the ground exploded. A cluster of crimson tree roots intertwined with each other, forming something like a tentacle. It whizzed over and tore open his chest. Confusion flashed in Li Mingxuan's eyes. He struggled to turn his head and discovered that Mu Qinghuan, who should have been guarding behind him, was now standing together with Zhou Fenghuang. With a roar of resentment or regret, Li Mingxuan's body was entangled by the roots and pulled deep into the ground. After that, he was never able to walk out from the ground again. Dong Hanju's eyes were blood red and a cruel aura tumbled around him. The black iron staff in his hands drew out a series of afterimages in the air. Wherever it swept through, space cracked. Whether it was the monster tree puppets or the demonic cultivators, anything that approached was instantly sent flying away. Bones were broken and tendons snapped. Powder flew into the air, but his complexion became increasingly pale. The boiling blood in his body was constantly evaporating as it wildly flowed out. He couldn't last much longer. He had to escape, otherwise he would eventually become a skeleton here. Suddenly, Dong Hanju's field of vision darkened. It was like he had been pulled into endless darkness. The aura of death arrived. He roared out loud and swept out the black iron staff in his hands. Puff, he hit, but before any joy could rise in his heart, it was frozen by a terrifying cold. An icy palm tore open his chest and forcefully grasped. But the place where his heart should have been was now empty. Thus, this grasp didn't cause any fatal damage to him. The darkness in front of him rapidly dispersed. Dong Hanju saw a demonic woman. Her chest and abdomen had been broken apart by the black iron staff and had fallen to the ground not too far away. Half of her body was severed, and her heart, liver, spleen, and lungs hung there. Her crimson eyes were filled with a crazy killing intent as she tried to pull out the arm that was tightly bound by his flesh and blood. At this moment, even someone as cruel and tyrannical as Dong Hanju felt a chill run down his spine. His lips twitched, and he smashed her head to pieces without hesitation. He pulled out the arm from his chest and tossed the broken corpse aside. Dong Hanju opened his mouth, and a common-looking bead flew out. The Dong family's Qilin child was born with a bead in his mouth. Dong Hanju's name came from this bead. Countless people had speculated about the might this bead possessed. There were countless rumors, but no one had ever seen it with their own eyes. Today was the first time it had been exposed to the public. On the surface of this bead, a multicolored halo of light flashed. When the 7 colors gathered together, a boundless aura erupted from within. Space shattered, revealing a pitch-black void. Like a great mouth, it swallowed up Dong Hanju. In the next moment, the void restored itself. Dong Hanju had disappeared without a trace. The corners of Su Guzi's eyes twitched. He had seen Dong Hanju escape with his own eyes. If he said he wasn't envious, he would be lying to himself. But right now, jealousy would only make him die faster. He suppressed these thoughts and turned around. Zhou Fenghuang, Mu Qinghuan, I can lay down an array formation to bring the 3 of us away. But I need you 2 to buy me some time. Okay, fellow Taoist Su, please hurry. Zhou Fenghuang and Mu Qinghuan nodded without hesitation. The 2 of them joined forces to sprinkle out a sea of fire. Black and blue flames wove together, covering the three of them. Su Guzi turned and hurriedly laid down the array formation. His hands constantly formed law seals, forming countless runes that fused into the depths of the earth. His eyes flashed with a cold light. That's right, he had grasped the secret array formation and could borrow its power to tear open space. But the power of the secret array formation could at most send a single person away. He lifted a hand and pointed between his eyebrows. A golden light appeared and shot into the array formation, completing the arrangement of the secret array formation. But Su Guzi's hand seals didn't stop at all. He casually stepped forwards. As long as he entered the secret array formation, he could instantly activate it. But just as he was about to step into the secret array formation, a terrifying, scorching aura gushed out from underground, drilling into his body. Su Guzi froze. The joy in his eyes turned to despair. In the next moment, a scorching aura erupted from within his body, smashing apart the insides of his body. Bang! Su Guzi's body exploded. Only his head remained intact. Zhou Fengwang and Mu Qingwan drew back their hands at the same time. Their complexions didn't change at all, as if the one who attacked wasn't them. Su Guzi's lips moved, his voice weak and shrill. The secret array formation can only send one person away. Ha ha. Only one person. He wanted to see these two vicious women panic and kill each other. He wanted to see neither of them leave alive. But Su Guzi was destined to be disappointed. Zhou Fengwang and Mu Qingwan's complexions didn't change at all because of his words. Their eyes flashed with ridicule. They stepped forwards at the same time and fused together. This was a true fusion. She became a woman that was different from the two of them, but also similar in many ways. She said in a soft voice, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Su. One person is enough." As soon as she stepped in, the secret array formation was stirred up. Layers upon layers of array formation runes appeared, submerging her like waves. "No!" Su Guzi screamed. His voice came to a screeching halt. His two eyeballs were the first to be unable to withstand it. They bulged outwards, burst open, and then exploded into pieces. Who? Black and blue flames flashed, burning everything to ashes. Sun Zifu had seen Zhou Fengwang and Mu Qingwan combine as one to kill Su Guzi. His eyes widened and his face was a mess. This world, he really couldn't understand it. Before he could regain his composure, he was ruthlessly tossed away. Qin Yu's icy voice echoed in his ears. "Whether you live or die, that will depend on your own luck." Whoosh! Young Master Sun held away. Qin Yu drew back his hand. His expression was dignified. He no longer had the energy to care for Sun Zifu. What followed was a moment of life and death. He had to bring out his greatest strength. Bang! The ground fiercely collapsed. Qin Yu stormed forwards. He lifted a hand and pressed forwards. Space twisted and the monster tree puppet general wildly struggled, but couldn't change its fate of being crushed to pieces. He looked up, and his eyes met with Zhao Qinyuan's. Without any discussion, the two instantly understood each other's intentions. "Kill!" With a loud shout, Zhao Qinyuan ruthlessly thrust the dragon spear in his hands into the earth. In the next moment, the ground tumbled like boiling water. Countless dragon spear phantoms tore through the earth and flew out. Every spear phantom was like an arrow leaving a bow. They howled through space and locked onto their target. Bang, bang. Loud explosions shook the heavens and earth. Each sound represented the death of a monster tree puppet. Zhao Qinyuan held his dragon spear motionlessly. But his terrifying slaughter had already arrived like a tide. Qin Yu's eyes erupted with brilliance. What a good Zhao Qinyuan! When he didn't move, he was like a mountain, but when he moved, the heavens seemed to collapse. He lifted a hand, and his 5 fingers bent backwards like he was drawing a bow. Silver-white light erupted, blinding to the eye. 5-element mountain, the path of metal. Whoosh! Silver-white light howled out, its speed inconceivable. Wherever it passed, the monster tree puppets would explode, torn to pieces by the slaughter strength. In several breaths of time, the terrifying tide of monster tree puppets had been destroyed by the two of them. But now, the greatest threats were the three cultivators that had been demonized: Lung Feng, Han Cheng, and the woman who had awakened the cursed bloodline. These three people were tyrannical in strength, and after becoming demonized, they were even more terrifying. Being locked onto by their blood-red eyes made one feel as if they had fallen into an endless hell of blood. With loud howls, Lung Feng and Han Cheng hurtled toward Zhao Qinyuan. Although the dragon spear phantoms constantly struck them away, they couldn't stop them from approaching. The woman with the cursed bloodline chose Qinyu. After becoming demonized, she floated in the air like a ghost. A dark gray fog constantly tumbled around her. This was the manifestation of the terrifying cursed strength. Ah! Her blood-red eyes stared at Qinyu, and she screamed out loud. Her originally beautiful face was now covered with scales, making her seem even more fierce and fierce. Qinyu's heart shrank. In the next moment, the cosmic sea-cross bell shook within his soul space. Even so, his soul still felt numb and showed signs of collapse. This woman, besides the cursed bloodline, she actually had such a terrifying soul attack technique. Whoosh! The cursed fog howled forwards like a tide. If Qin Yu's soul was injured, then his body would be stiff, and he would find it hard to respond. But now, he stepped forwards and avoided the fog attack. Qin Yu's figure was like a bolt of lightning as he hurtled towards the demonic woman. As long as he could kill her, the power of the curse would naturally disperse. Qin Yu's eyes were icy cold. He was confident that as long as he was hit, the demonic woman would undoubtedly die. But at this time, a wooden spear stabbed out. Qin Yu had no choice but to draw back his fist in defense. He lifted his hand and thrust out. The wooden spear broke apart. The monster with succubus general roared out in pain, but it didn't retreat. It continued to take several steps forwards, and all of its branches spread out, covering Qin Yu like a net that covered the skies. The monster with succubus general's body completely disintegrated, turning into twisting branches. These branches wound around Qin Yu layer after layer, wildly wriggling and contracting like countless snakes teaming up to kill their prey. Bang, bang! A deep rumbling sound erupted. The layers of branches violently trembled, and the wriggling became increasingly slow. Finally, with a loud bang, it was forcefully blown apart. Qin Yu strode forwards. The dark curse fog had already been taken back. The demonic woman didn't seem to have lost her sanity. She was nearly killed in a single exchange, causing her to be incomparably angry. With a scream, the curse fog wildly gathered, wrapping around her and condensing into a giant snake. Its eyes were blood red. These were the eyes of the demonic woman. The snake hissed and swept its tail outwards as it rushed forwards. Although this snake was condensed from the power of the curse, it had some unknown secret technique that made it seem as if it were a living being. The aura it emitted was even more astonishing. Qin Yu didn't dare to face it head-on. Once the two sides touched, he feared the pervasive power of the curse would invade his body. Chapter 511. The dragon spear in Zhao Qinyuan's hand drew a cold arc through the air as it stabbed into Han Sheng's chest. A destructive strength erupted from the spear point, instantly sweeping through his entire body. Han Sheng's grasping fingers were only several inches away from Zhao Qinyuan, but he couldn't move any further. The dragon spear suddenly vanished from sight. Han Sheng's corpse fell backwards. Before it even hit the ground, it broke apart, turning into powder that sprinkled over the earth. At the same time, the other Zhao Qinyuan, facing Lung Feng, lifted a hand and thrust forwards. A dragon spear appeared in his hand. The spear point trembled slightly, completely ignoring Lung Feng's powerful defenses. It pierced through between his eyebrows, and red and white matter shot outwards. The two Zhao Qinyuans burst like bubbles, simultaneously vanishing from sight. Then, his figure reappeared where he originally stood. He stabbed the dragon's spear into the earth, as if he hadn't moved at all from the very start. But after becoming demonic, Lung Feng and Han Sheng, who had become even more terrifying, had died to his hands. Shua. Raising his spear, Zhao Qianyuan looked up. His eyes became deep, as if they could contain the entire starry skies. He lifted his spear and pointed it at the ancient tree monster. His aura slowly rose, like a great beast awakening from slumber. The dragon spear in his hand turned pure gold, as if cast from gold. Dragon scales appeared on the spear shaft, the tip becoming a dragon's head and the spear point becoming a dragon's fawn. In the next moment, a resonant dragon's cry shook the heavens and earth. A great golden dragon flew out from Zhao Qianyuan's body, soaring into the skies. At this moment, Zhao Qianyuan's aura reached its strongest point. Wherever his spear pointed, the world became like a mirror. Countless cracks appeared. Wherever it passed, countless tree monster puppets froze in place. Then, like the wind, they turned into powder. Within the ancient tree monster, there was a wooden house. The sage had a dignified expression. The praise in his eyes had disappeared, replaced by a bit of dread. Before this, he had always regarded Zhao Qianyuan as a rising star of the demonic path. No matter how amazing his talent was, it would still take a period of time for him to truly grow. But now, the sage actually felt a threat from him. Even if it was only the faintest bit, it was still unimaginable. It had to be known that as the sage of the monster race, he was the one who guided his people forward. Although he wasn't the strongest, he had the confidence to not fear anyone. What made him feel threatened was that Zhao Qianyuan already had the ability to harm him. If he didn't personally feel this, he would have never believed it. That junior actually managed to comprehend the true essence of the world. Sage's eyes turned icy cold. He even rejoiced that he had run into Zhao Qianyuan today. Otherwise, if he was allowed to continue growing, it wouldn't be too long before the monster race gained another terrifying enemy. Fortunately, he was going to die here today. Dressed in a white dress, Qin Yun was as elegant as a fairy in the wind. Her beautiful brows were slightly furrowed and her eyes were filled with surprise. He is indeed worthy of being the prince of the demonic path. He has the potential to become a peerless genius that can suppress the world. He is far stronger than I imagined. She was silent for a moment, and there was a look of pity in her eyes. However, the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and her smile was incomparably beautiful, because before long, everything that this proud son of heaven possessed would belong to her. Perhaps she wouldn't be able to inherit everything, but the portion she would receive would be enough for her to advance. At that time, her future would be even brighter, and no one would be able to compare to her. Perhaps she could achieve an unprecedented realm in the monster race, becoming the first person to truly leave the world. Qin Yu's eyes were dignified and he sighed inwardly. Although he had made many guesses, Zhao Qianyuan's strength still surpassed his expectations. If they were to engage in a life or death struggle, just what were his chances of victory? Qin Yu shook his head, suppressing these untimely thoughts. If they couldn't escape today, then the two of them would be buried here. Zhao Qianyuan had already erupted with his greatest strength without reservation. How could he remain silent? He stepped forwards. Qin Yu's black robes puffed up, and his black hair surged behind him. His aura was like an erupting volcano, climbing and climbing without end. 5-element nascent souls superimposing their combat strength. 5-element mountains secret art. Sovereign level demon body. Blue sea 3rd level, 5th level, 7th level, 9th level. It still wasn't enough. Qin Yu roared out. Power of the burning heavens. Burning blood, burning magic, burning life. Without any scruples, he instantly erupted with the strength bestowed upon him by the demonic path's sacrificial altar. Blue sea 10th level, peak blue sea, perfection blue sea. Qin Yu's aura seemed to break through some sort of limit. At this moment, he felt as if he were one with the world. Zhao Qinyuan's pupils shrank for a moment before he composed himself. He hadn't been wrong. This Yao Bin, he didn't have full confidence he could defeat him, but at this time, the stronger he was, the better. If the two of them joined forces, there was a chance they could fight. If he could cut down the ancient tree monster. His eyes blazed with monstrous fighting spirit. The sage gently shivered. He slowly looked up, his eyes red with anger. How unfair is this world? The demonic path has given birth to Zhao Qinyuan, someone who already has the potential to dominate the world, and yet the heavens want to bestow upon them a second unsurpassed proud son of heaven. Since ancient times, my monster race has experienced countless tribulations and catastrophes. Countless races have nearly been exterminated, and it is only by hiding in the lands of extreme cold that we are able to survive. If my race could also have such a proud son of heaven, we wouldn't have fallen to such a state. I hate this world. I hate this world for favoring me. I hate this world for treating my monster race so harshly. Since the world is heartless, the monster race can only struggle for their own lives. These two proud sons of heaven of the demonic path must die today. I will use them as sacrifices to forge the foundation of my monster race for all eternity. Resentful roars echoed through the wooden house. Blue Cloud silently laughed. She never thought that the heavens would treat her so generously. Not only did they send her Zhao Qinyuan, but they also sent her another peerless proud son of heaven. If she could seize the good fortune of these two, her eyes brightened. She lifted a hand and touched the lotus flower between her eyebrows, sending a message to the sage. No matter what, she had to keep these two people here. Between the canopy of trees, within the embryo, where layers of branches wove together, the handsome youth revealed a hint of excitement. To break through the barrier of yin and yang and defy the will of the heavens and earth. Even if he had made countless preparations and accumulations, he still didn't dare to be careless. If he was the slightest bit careless, his countless years of painstaking planning would all go down the drain. But now that these two people had appeared, they were the best tonic for him. His chances of success today were originally only 50%, but now he had an 80% chance. How could he not be overjoyed? As for the cultivators that had fallen into depravity and the monster tree puppets being unable to stop them at all, this resurrected monster race great emperor didn't care about this at all. This was because he wanted to personally suppress these two people and plunder all of their strength for his own use. The handsome youth's eyes flashed with ridicule. Once they discovered that he could mobilize a portion of their strength, just what sort of expressions would they have? Just thinking about it left him filled with anticipation. Bang! In the crown of the tree, tens of thousands of branches slowly bloomed like a flower bud. The handsome youth, who was lying flat on the ground, slowly stood up. Atop his naked body, a magnificent robe appeared from thin air. At the same time, a vast and majestic aura swept out in all directions like a tide. Wherever I go, I am king. My thoughts change, the heavens collapse, the earth crumble. My will is the will of the heavens. This was a kind of indescribable power and terror. The two of you, are you willing to sacrifice yourself for me? His voice was simple and ancient. Every syllable contained a transcendent pressure, as if a million mountains were falling down, pressing down on one's mind, and causing one to instinctively bow their heads. If it were any other cultivator, they feared they would have fallen into a trance upon hearing these words. But the two people standing in front of him today were the most outstanding juniors of the demonic path. Even in their peak state, the words of the monster race great emperor might not have been able to shake their minds, much less now that they were in a weakened state of breaking through yin and yang. Whether it was Zhao, Qinyuan, or Qinyu, their complexions only changed for a moment before they composed themselves. Their auras tumbled endlessly, becoming much stronger than before. The handsome youth had no expression, as if he didn't care about this at all. Since you are not willing to sacrifice yourself, then I will personally take action and strip away everything you have obtained in your lives. He lifted a hand and grasped forwards. Qin Yu's complexion changed. At this moment, he felt as if he had been isolated from the world, without any connection to the outside world. Then, an invisible aura arrived. It was like eternal ice, invading his body and chilling his flesh and bones. He couldn't resist it. In fact, he couldn't even find a way to resist this strength. Qin Yu could clearly feel the strength within his body fading away. Like a water bag that had been punctured, he began to gradually dry up and become empty. This strength wasn't just magic power, but also soul aura, supernatural powers, and even his blood vitality. At this moment, Qin Yu was like an ice sculpture. He was powerless to resist, no matter how he tried to kill him. The little blue lamp, the cosmic sea cross bell, the purple moon, the blue sun in his Dantian Sea. All of his cards had been completely lost. After a brief moment of panic, Qin Yu determined that he could only rely on himself. If he didn't resist, he would soon lose everything and die. Calm down. Calm down. The ancient tree monster was once the monster race great emperor. Even at its peak, it wasn't simple for it to easily take away everything from a blue sea cultivator. Right now, all of my strength has been frozen and I can't summon anything. The only thing I can rely on is my will. Qin Yu's eyes brightened as if he had grasped onto some key point. Yes, it is my will. My strength is what I obtained when I was humble and low. I climbed up step by step, accumulating it bit by bit. It is what I rely on, and it is also the reflection of my life struggles. Every bit of this strength contains my indelible mark. No one can take it away from me, because my strength can only be controlled by me. At this moment, Qin Yu's mind and will were highly concentrated. There was a loud explosion in his mind, as if some sort of transformation had occurred. Then, he discovered that there was an inexplicable connection between him and the strength that had been taken away. Even if they were separated by mountains and rivers, he still couldn't sever this connection. The cold chill in his body faded away like a tide. His state of isolation from the world was immediately broken. Qin took a deep breath. All of the strength that flew out from his body returned at an even faster speed, instantly fusing together. It became more mellow, more tenacious, more unbreakable. Bang! A soaring aura erupted. It was endlessly sharp and overbearing, as if even the heavens and earth could be instantly torn apart. Zhao Qinyuan grasped the dragon spear, his eyes incomparably bright. He stared straight ahead, locking onto the crown of the tree and the handsome youth floating in the air. There was nothing else. Kill! With a loud shout, the dragon's spear thrust forwards. This thrust was extremely slow, but the handsome youth's eyes revealed a bit of surprise. He lifted a hand, and 2 fingers pressed forwards. The dazzling golden spear point fell between his fingers. It was incomparably sharp, able to pierce through 1,000 mountains and rivers. But between these 2 white fingers, it couldn't move forward even half an inch. The handsome youth smiled. You are very strong. If you were given enough time, your achievements might even surpass mine. Unfortunately, your innate destiny is lacking and you will perish today. Zhao Qinyuan grasped the end of the dragon's spear. His eyes shined like 2 burning stars. Roar! Above his head, a great golden dragon coiled around him. It swooped down from the heavens and instantly fused into the dragon's spear. As if a soul had been injected into a body, the aura emitted by the dragon's spear wildly rose. The dazzling golden light turned into blazing flames. Zhao Qinyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, which fell onto the dragon's spear. The golden flames suddenly took on a blood-red hue, adding a thick killing intent to their majesty. The handsome youth's 2 fingers trembled. His eyebrows arched up in surprise. He saw that where his fingers touched the dragon's spear, they were scorched black. It had to be known that his mortal body was condensed from the essence of his main body and fused with a tyrannical demonic strength. Although it hadn't fully matured yet, it was still indestructible. To be able to injure his mortal body, the handsome youth's eyes suddenly turned white, without the least bit of impurities in them. They shined with a bleak and cold deathly stillness. As his eyes fell on Zhao Qinyuan, his eyebrows moved. Then, as his eyes fell on the dragon's spear, they finally turned into praise. Two souls that don't belong to this world. One has its own mortal body, and the other has become a treasure primordial spirit. Yet, they can perfectly fuse together. I am really curious. Where do you come from? And how are you able to accomplish this? The handsome youth smiled. I am even more interested in the two of you, because I have discovered that you might be hiding some secrets that I would like to know. Then, please stay behind and become a part of me. For the sake of my true return, contribute all of your strength. He loosened his fingers. As the dragon's spear howled towards him, he grabbed it and forcefully pulled it back. But this pull caused the handsome youth's smile to stiffen. This was because the dragon's spear in his hand had vanished into nothingness. It was like it was only a projection. After exhausting all of its strength, it would naturally vanish. He looked up, his eyes as cold as lightning. A terrifying aura instantly descended, locking down the surrounding space. Zhao Qinyuan's expression didn't change. He touched his chest and bowed. Then, he turned to Qinyu and said, "Brother Yao, I am very sorry. And I do not have the strength to kill the monster emperor. I can only take my leave first." As he spoke, his figure vanished, turning into wisps of mist that vanished along with the dragon's spear. The handsome youth's complexion paled. He roared out loud, and the entire ancient tree monster violently trembled. The earth crazily tumbled, and countless roots tore through the earth, wildly lashing out, causing cracks to appear in space. But this action didn't force out Zhao Qinyuan's figure. This demonic path scion had smoothly concealed himself from everyone and escaped far away. As one thought about how the one they faced now was the resurrected monster race Great Emperor, one couldn't help but cheer for Zhao Qinyuan's methods. But at this time, Qinyu had no thoughts of cheering. His lips moved, and he began to curse out loud. Chapter 512. As great hero Qin bitterly smiled in his heart, the enraged monster race Great Emperor calmed down. The ancient tree monster fell silent as well, leaving the entire world silent. But it was far too quiet. The entire world was like a frozen iceberg, without the slightest fluctuation. An invisible pressure fell upon the soul, causing one to instinctively tremble. The monster race Great Emperor suddenly smiled. Indeed, every generation has its own geniuses. I have underestimated today's juniors, but where can you run to? Once I escape, even if I have to flee to the depths of the Yellow Springs, I will find you and tear you to shreds. He turned around. And you? Are you also thinking of how to escape? But I will not make the same mistake a second time. Let's end this. Every branch of the ancient tree monster erupted with light. They shot into the skies, weaving together into a world phantom, like a vast starry sky slowly descending. Although the speed wasn't fast, wherever the world phantom covered, all living things, all laws, were imprisoned by the world's strength. Qinyu stiffened, unable to move at all. He resisted the urge to summon the little blue lamp and break through the world imprisonment, allowing the world's strength to suppress him and pull him towards the monster race Great Emperor. The little blue lamps might defy the heavens. Even if the monster emperor attacked and summoned a world phantom, he was confident that the little blue lamp would be able to break it. But what would happen after he broke through the world phantom? Facing the monster emperor, he was powerless to resist. If Undying woke up, he might be able to escape. But right now, he could only rely on himself. If he couldn't escape, and if he couldn't fight, then he could only wait for a chance. Qinyu only had one chance to use his trump card. If he failed, then he would fall into a hopeless situation. So, Qinyu chose to wait. In the worst-case scenario, he still had the 9-realm Holy Lands Saint's Sun token. Although he didn't know whether or not it could stop the resurrected monster emperor, if things didn't go, well, he could hide inside for a period of time. The connection between the inside and outside of the small world had inevitably been severed. Perhaps the outside world was already aware of this, and was trying to find a way to forcefully open the small world. As long as he could persist until the demonic path powerhouses arrived, there would naturally be someone to deal with a monster race great emperor, and he would be able to preserve his life. It was because of this that Shinyu was able to barely maintain his calm in this hopeless situation. If he were to truly be in a hopeless situation, then no matter how tenacious his will was, he would still fall into chaos and recklessly try to escape. Those who had never experienced it would never be able to imagine the terror of life and death. The monster race great emperor faintly said, "What I want is a junior that escapes. Although you are strong, your usefulness cannot be compared with his. Since things are destined to be like this, then I have no choice but to sacrifice you." He paused for a moment. "I hope that you can contribute some of your strength to help me break through yin and yang." The disdain in his tone. If it weren't for the fact that the scene wasn't right, Chinyu really wanted to roll his eyes at him. "Bastard, you want to kill me, but you still think I'm useless. You're a typical case of killing a pig and blaming it for being skinny." Flustered and exasperated, Zhang Xian didn't realize that this analogy wasn't suitable at all. The monster race great emperor opened his mouth, and an extremely terrifying aura instantly descended. Whether it was Qin Yu's mortal body or soul, he was completely suppressed. The calm and indifferent monster race great emperor's eyes suddenly flashed with ecstasy. As he stared at Qin Yu, his eyes turned burning hot. Zhao Qinyuan was very good. Moreover, there were 2 foreign souls in his body. If he could swallow them, it would indeed be greatly beneficial to him. But what no one knew was that from the moment Qin Yu appeared, the monster race great emperor's attention had shifted to him. This was because within Qin Yu's body, there were several auras that caused the monster race great emperor's soul to tremble. Some were incomparably sweet, some were unfathomably cryptic, some were incomparably dangerous, but no matter which one it was, all of them were able to stimulate the deepest greed in the monster race great emperor's heart. Yes, from the very start, the monster race great emperor had been putting on an act. When Zhao Qinyuan ran away, he was indeed incomparably angry. But the majority of what he displayed was an act. As long as Qin Yu didn't run away, everything was fine. As he thought, this deeply hidden boy might have harbored thoughts of killing him and seizing everything he had, so he had been patiently restraining himself from erupting. Originally, the monster race great emperor was worried that Qin Yu wouldn't be able to restrain himself and would go all out against him. At that time, he didn't have full confidence that he would be able to capture this boy. It wasn't that he wasn't confident in his own strength, but that the several auras within Qin Yu's body left him feeling a great deal of dread. But now, there was no need to worry about anything. When the monster race great emperor opened his mouth, Qin Yu had already been thoroughly suppressed. This junior had been patiently waiting for the best time to attack. But now, there really wasn't any need to worry about this. This was because he had already lost his chance to attack. He was now nothing more than a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. The monster race great emperor's heart was filled with excitement and ecstasy. He never imagined that his hypocritical deal with the sage would finally catch such a big fish. He would swallow Qin Yu and obtain the auras within his body. Although the monster race great emperor didn't know just what those auras were, there was one thing he could be sure of. Today, not only would he smoothly return, but he would also be able to take a step further from the highest pole, perhaps even more. Extreme sorrow brings bliss. Indeed, extreme sorrow brings bliss. He, the monster race great emperor, would not only be resurrected, but he would also ascend to the peak of the world and take back everything he lost in the past with interest. Of course, all of this was in the future. Right now, the most important thing was to completely eat up Qin Yu, leaving nothing behind. His original body was the ancient tree monster, and he could plunder all the strength from the flesh and blood of others. It had been a long time since the monster race great emperor had been so eager to eat up a life form. As for whether or not Qin Yu could resist, the monster race great emperor had absolute confidence in this. This was because it wasn't as simple as just opening his mouth. At this time, All of his strength had erupted, and he had displayed his complete might. Whether it was his soul, his body, or even his mind and will, everything was in a sealed state. The current Qin Yu wasn't even able to think. He could only obediently allow himself to be swallowed up. As the monster race great emperor looked at Qin Yu, who was about to enter his mouth, and thought of his monstrous harvest, he couldn't help but praise his own wisdom 108 times. If he didn't beat him at his own game, wanting to capture Qin Yu wouldn't have been easy at all. He was far too smart. In fact, the monster race great Emperor Qi Huer was indeed careful. He had made preparations that even a calamity immortal would be suppressed if they weren't prepared. But in front of Qin Yu, an accident occurred. This was because from the very start, he hadn't lost the ability to think. Since he could think, he could naturally resist. Within his soul space, golden lines appeared on the surface of the cosmic sea-cross bell. Although the bell itself was damaged in many places, it still emitted an incomparably tyrannical aura. Bang! The cosmic sea-cross bell suddenly trembled. An impact visible to the naked eye erupted. It was like a great wave that instantly swept through the soul space. A shattering sound that only the soul could hear entered Xiao Qin's ears. It was like a frozen lake had been brutally and unreasonably smashed by a sledgehammer. The monster race great emperor stuffily coughed. His eyes widened and shock filled his handsome face. Because his soul had suffered a backlash, his movements paused. But this brief pause gave Qin Yu a chance to fight for his life. Within his soul space, the purple moon began to shine with a brilliant light. That pure purple radiance was like flowing water. At almost the same time, the blue sun within his Dantian Sea erupted with a blinding light, as if it were a true blue sun. Within his soul space, the phantom of a blue sun appeared beside the purple moon. Within his Dantian Sea, beside the blue sun, the projection of the purple moon appeared. At this moment, within Qin Yu's body, it was like two suns and two moons had appeared, illuminating his soul and igniting his Dantian Sea. Qin Yu's thoughts were incomparably clear, as if he had abandoned all emotions. But what was completely different was the terrifying strength rampaging within his Dantian Sea. They loudly rushed out, like tongues of fire on an autumn grassland. After a single spark fell, it became an unextinguishable wildfire. His imprisoned mortal body felt an intense, burning sensation, as if he were placed in a pill furnace and the flames were crazily forging him. Although it was excruciatingly painful, in this painful process, his mortal body was actually liberated. Qin Yu's skin turned crimson red, and his blood vessels swelled up. He could hear the sound of his blood rapidly flowing through his veins. He lifted his right hand, and the shadow of the rules appeared on his index finger. Because he was so close to the monster race great emperor, he could easily reach behind his head. His index finger hooked onto the umbilical cord that connected the monster race great emperor's mortal body to the ancient tree monster. Qin Yu could clearly see the monster race great emperor's eyes widen in shock and anger. It was clear that the monster race great emperor still hadn't reacted. How had he suddenly fallen to such a degree? He realized that he had to stop Qin Yu no matter what. But now that Qin Yu had broken free from his shackles, all of the backlash would fall upon him. The monster race great emperor's soul froze and his body stiffened. Even if he only needed a short period of time to recover, Qin Yu wouldn't wait for him. He exerted force with his index finger. He could feel a tough resistance, but as he increased his strength, this resistance reached its strongest point before suddenly collapsing. Pain, despair, hatred, unwillingness, this single roar transmitted far too much information. With a deep and loud explosion, Qin Yu was like a moth that was sent flying away. His chest slightly caved in, and with a loud crackling sound, countless bones broke. He crashed into the ground like a plow, drilling deep into the earth and causing billowing waves of dirt and stone to fly off to both sides. Qi Huer had recovered. As he said before, he only needed a short period of time to catch his breath and his strength would once again be able to easily roll over Chinyu. But he didn't have the chance to attack again. His eyes stubbornly stared at Chinyu. Chihuahua wanted to lift his hand, but halfway through, he slumped back down. His mouth moved. Then, countless tiny cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of this extremely intelligent monster race, Great Emperor's mortal body. It looked like a heated terracotta was suddenly doused with cold water, causing it to explode. There was no explosion. Otherwise, with the monster race Great Emperor's strength, the self-destruction of his mortal body was enough to raise the surrounding area for 1,000 miles to the ground and drag the severely wounded Chinyu down with him. I will return. After leaving behind these final words, his cracked mortal body broke apart bit by bit. Then, these pieces of flesh and blood melted into a puddle of goo like wax under high temperatures. Perhaps this wasn't an appropriate description, because the monster race Great Emperor's mortal body wasn't made of true flesh and blood, but was bred from absorbing the essence of the ancient tree monster's strength. This puddle of goo didn't smell of blood at all. It was like a flowing crystal that shined with a dazzling halo. When his gaze landed, it even made one instinctively swallow a mouthful of saliva and want to pounce on him. This was because this was the demon blood crystal that Su, Guzi, and the others had been desperately searching for. But, compared to a simple demon blood crystal, it contained the boundless vitality of the ancient tree monster. Space suddenly collapsed inward, revealing a pitch black hole. An extreme chill was released from within, as if it were connected to the underworld. A dim soul flew out from the demon blood crystal. It was pulled into the black hole, and the space around it wriggled, until everything returned to tranquility. It was only at this time that Chinyu, who was lying in the mud with his back against a broken boulder, let out a deep breath. He violently coughed, blood splashing out from his nose and mouth. The monster race, Great Emperor Chihuahua's resurrection journey had finally ended in complete failure. The ancient tree monster's verdant crown instantly withered and turned yellow. Countless leaves fell down like the rain of the century. The broken umbilical cord wriggled, wanting to insert itself into the demon blood crystal. Unfortunately, at this time, it was already powerless to change its own fate. Within the ancient tree monster's treehouse, the silent sage let out a long breath. Chihuahua's strength and endurance had also surpassed his expectations. Unfortunately, this monster race Great Emperor's luck was far too bad. He had actually failed miserably in such an easy task. After struggling for countless years, he had finally been ruined by a nameless junior. From the very start, the sage had never thought of truly helping Chihuahua resurrect. A monster race Great Emperor that had been contaminated with demonic energy was no longer a pure monster. But as he witnessed this result, he still sighed. Luckily, the one to obtain everything was destined to be someone from the monster race. Thus, Chihuahua's death wasn't in vain. The demonic path junior that killed him would be buried with him, taking revenge for the Great Emperor. After he died again, he would be able to obtain some comfort. Lifting a hand, the sage pressed it against the treehouse. Boundless strength instantly poured in, like an invisible hand gripping the ancient tree monster's throat. How can you take back what you spat out? You have already died, so why are you so attached to the world of the living? Why are you so reluctant to leave? Blue Cloud's lips curled up in an incomparably brilliant smile. She had already prepared herself to flee, but she never expected the result would be even better. With such a powerful Great Emperor Chihuahua, and such a peerlessly outstanding proud son of heaven of the demonic path, obtaining everything they had was truly the most wonderful thing in the world. The lotus mark between her eyebrows shined. Blue Cloud stepped forwards, and her white dress bloomed like a pure white cloud as she floated towards the ancient tree monster. She flew past Chinyu and looked down at this severely wounded little fellow. After a moment of thought, she landed. This big sister really should thank you properly. Her voice was cold and charming, perfectly fusing together. Her eyes blazed as she looked at Chinyu. If it were another time, this big sister wouldn't mind giving you the best pleasures in the world before you die. Unfortunately, those people from the demonic path will soon arrive. This big sister doesn't have much time left. Blue Cloud gently smiled. Don't worry. In order to express my gratitude to you, Big Sister will move quickly. You won't feel any pain at all before everything ends. Before her voice fell, black vines spread out from beneath her feet and wrapped around Qin Yu's body. They pierced through his skin and drilled into his flesh and blood. Blue Cloud's smile became even brighter. There were far too many lessons that told one not to be long-winded. Otherwise, there would be some unforeseen event that would make one unable to cry, even if they wanted to. Thus, when it was time to kill someone, she would do so. Miss Blue had always been a nimble and decisive person. She certainly wouldn't make such a stupid mistake. As someone with a 10,000 poison body, a woman whose fate was to be destroyed, the reason she walked the world was to deliver death to all living beings. Thus, killing someone was simply far too simple. Blue Cloud blinked her eyes. As she looked at the faint traces of black energy that appeared on Qin Yu's face, she felt a bit of regret in her heart. What a pity! Such a handsome and strong young man. Then, let's never meet again. Qin Yu lowered his head, as if he were silently withstanding the pain of poison invading his organs. After a brief moment of astonishment, a strange look appeared in his eyes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.